wonderful way to start your year as captain.
Oh, an edge! There it is! Look at the Aussies! That's the little urn. It's back with the Australians.
I think one of the most frustrating things is that we haven't been blown away.
Up goes the finger, and that is a fitting end. England have won this test match by 60 runs and wrap up the series 3-1.
I'm pretty happy with the way things are gone and, you know, my position as captain.
The news from Pallekele is that Joe Root's team have beaten Sri Lanka by 57 runs. They've taken the series.
Yeah, I'm in a good place right now. It's been a good tour.
Ben Stokes facing Cummins, cuts away, and he takes the four that wins the game for England.
Joel Wilson taps his shoulders, raises his finger, and England have won the series 3-1. They win by 191 runs.
As I keep saying, we're not the finished article by any means.
Oh, well bowled. Yes, really well bowled. A little nick from Jasprit Bumrah, and the test match is over. England win.
Some people predicting 4-0 this series to India, but England have won the first test by 227 runs.
Fine rearguard innings from Lawrence, but England have been bowled out for just 135. India win by an innings and 25 runs to wrap up the series by 3 test matches to 1.
As an England captain, as any captain of any team, you always want your best players available all of the time. But it doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Catch. And that'll do nicely for England. They square the series.
I mean, seeing Gordon become England's most successful captain with all those test wins was superb yesterday. Something I've been looking forward to seeing for a while.
Yeah, I'd love the opportunity to take this team forward and to turn things round. If that decision's taken out of my hands, then so be it. But I'd love the opportunity to carry that forward.
This is edged and caught at third slip by Jason Holder. Overton goes fishing. England lose their 8. And another England batter gets himself out.
I think the question Joe will be asking himself is, do I want this anymore? Do I need this anymore? I've given it a good go, but I might not be the man for the job.
Okay, interesting to listen to that short summary of Root's career in charge of the England side, the ups and the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the ups and the lows. I'm reinventing colloquialism. Matt Pryor is with me. Matt, your words there, you know, Joe Root will be asking himself, does he want this anymore? What if the answer's yes?
You've thrown me in the first question. I don't know. I don't think the answer's going to be yes.
What if the answer's yes?
Well, if the answer's yes, then the ECB have made a slight rod for their back because they've supported Joe massively after the Ashes. Really, once you've made the decision to keep Joe Root on as captain after that Ashes performance, you're in for the long haul. You can't, I don't think, then boot him out after one series where you've got this reset, you've left your 2 best bowlers at home, you go away and lose, batsmen have batted poorly. Everyone will look at this series, and of course the captain will take responsibility and is accountable. But this is not just a Joe Root issue. Joe does not have the players around him. The players themselves, the squad, is not strong enough. The bowlers are not good enough. The batters are not good enough. You can have the best Mike Brearley could be out there. I don't think we're winning the series. So are we going to put that on Joe Root? I don't think we can.
With Mike Brearley as captain, you don't think England are beating West Indies?
No. They don't have the players. They don't have the players. You need good captain. Look at the team Brearley captained. Look at the teams that have been successful over the years. The captains have taken plaudits, and rightly so, but they've had outstanding players. Who in this England team right now is genuinely world class in Test cricket? Root, Stokes, Bairstow, potentially. That's it.
It's going to take me a bit of time to digest that really analogy, because I'm not sure I agree with you. Okay, it's your former captain, a man you think a great deal of, Andrew Strauss, who made the decision to support Root, coming back in as interim director of cricket. Root's average, his career performances hasn't changed dramatically. As a player, he's 4,500 runs at 52. And as captain, he's 5,200 runs at 46. So it's not wildly different. And he might have played on more difficult pitches, for example, in the period that he's been captain. They've won a lot of test matches under him, the most, but they've lost the most as well, which is an interesting juxtaposition. Surely Strauss only backed him immediately. He wasn't saying you've got the job for as long as you want it.
No, but when you talk about a reset, there is a connotation with time that goes with the reset. You can't reset in a matter of weeks or a month. That's just never going to happen. So that's why I think that decision to back Joe Root was such a big one, and does come with some time that is given to him. Because they're going, again, when they selected the squad, it was about learning what the players can and can't do in leadership roles, etc., etc. Well, we've certainly learnt, that's for sure. But again, I come back to the point, I don't think this loss is purely down to Joe Root as a captain. Pick another guy. Who else is going to be the captain? So let's say Ben
This
Stokes.
is a slightly different conversation. This conversation is what happens if England lose, and what will happen to Joe Root, even if it's not of his own volition.
Yeah, definitely. So that's why we've gotten to this point. Is if Joe Root doesn't step down, can Strauss get rid of him? I personally think it would be unfair based on this series when you've just made the decision to stand by him after the Ashes. And the reason why I think it's unfair is I don't think Joe Root is the reason we've lost the series. I think we've lost the series because the players are not good enough. And if you're going to replace Joe Root, who are you replacing him with? So let's say it would be Ben Stokes, for instance. If Ben Stokes is captain, do we win the series? Does Zach Crawley's technical issues suddenly disappear? Does Dan Lawrence not play across straight ones? Can our bowlers suddenly hit consistently a good area? I don't think so.
Well, I think really good leadership can improve cricketers, can raise their stock, can get more from them, and really good tactical leadership can make more of situations in matches that perhaps Joe hasn't been able to.
And I think that is a very valid point, absolutely. And you mentioned that the man I have a huge amount of respect for, Andrew Strauss, who picked up the team when we were in a terrible, we were 7th in the world at the time, bowled out for 51 in Jamaica, and he set the precedent in the dressing room, along with Andy Flower as coach as well, who would not take anything other than the best performance from any individual, and changed the culture. But that culture was changed over a period of time. That wasn't changed over a month or 3 test matches. And also the difference, I suppose, is the players in the dressing room we knew were capable to go and, you had Peterson and you had Anderson and you had Broad and you had Bell and you had, these guys, Flintoff, Harmison. Whereas I don't think, I keep going back to who the players in this dressing room, are they technically, mentally good enough?
Was leaving Broad and Anderson behind a mistake, or has it really revealed that certain players are able to paper over the cracks in English cricket?
Well, hindsight's an exact science. It was a huge risk, and the ECB have played it pretty well, because they can say, well, the door's not shut for Anderson and Broad. The point is, they wouldn't select people wanting them to fail. So although they said the door wasn't shut, they were, I'm sure, very hopeful that Broad and Anderson wouldn't need to be selected, because it means the young bowlers have come in, stepped up and performed brilliantly. When you lose any test series, of course, if you haven't picked your strongest team, it looks like a shocking call. But they wanted to find out about other players in leadership roles, and they have found that out. Now what do they do about it? That, I think, is the question.
Okay, and so you think Joe will stand aside, do you? after today.
Yeah, and this is just based on watching him from afar. I have a feeling he will say, enough's enough.
Okay. Let's go to the issues of technique and fragile mentalities, really. The team, as you pointed out, look oddly to me ill-equipped. You know, there have been times when, you know, Zach Crawley's making runs, or he's in partnership with Joe Root, or Ben Stokes hitting it out of the park, or Bairstow's making 100. And if, you know, you got those guys, you add in Anderson and Broad, and you think, well, we have got quite a lot of world-class cricketers, actually. But Anderson and Broad are at completely the wrong end of the spectrum in terms of, you know, their ability to play a role in clear planning for the future. They can play a role in the immediate future, but not the long-term future. So, do you think that these technical issues have left England worryingly far behind?
Yeah, I do, and I think the time has come now to stop sugarcoating it and actually be very, very honest. I mean, the slightly alarming thing, and I get where Marcus Trescothick was coming from. He, you know, there's no point throwing your dressing room under the bus, etc., etc. But he's sort of, his cry for don't judge us by one game is completely inaccurate, because you're not. This has been an issue for years, literally years. England have not scored enough runs for years. And at what point do you go, why are we delivering young England batsmen to the door of the England dressing room, expecting them to walk out at the Gabba, in the West Indies, in India, to score hundreds, average 45 plus, when they don't have sound enough techniques to do it? I just don't think that's right. And again, this is not a go at Crawley or an individual thing. This is something that needs to be looked at countrywide, and it starts with the focus around long-form cricket in counties and development, coaching, the priority that it's given, so that these guys have more of a chance to succeed.
Interesting. Since January 2015, England have given debuts to a lot of cricketers. The top 10 of the batsmen in terms of average, the top 10 average from 30, which is the best, Rory Burns, down to 27, which is Alex Hales. So there are 10 players, Burns, Denley, Lawrence Sibley, Pope, Crawley, Folkes, Stoneman, Milan and Hales, who have made debuts, and none of them has averaged more than 30.3. That's a staggering statistic, really, in days of covered pitches, and you know, many overseas players would say that England is one of the best places in the world to bat, unless it happens to be a very wet summer and you get green tops. But in general, England's a good place to bat. So your home matches, you know, you should understand the conditions. That's an alarming stat, isn't it?
That's a damning stat. Yeah, absolutely, and it sort of proves that point.
And what Root's achieved, averaging 20 more than that. 20 more than the best of it.
Right, exactly.
Incredible, isn't it?
And also, coming back to him as a captain, he's been doing that whilst captaining the team, having to, you know, lead the team, score the runs, watch another collapse. Yeah, you know, there is a huge amount of pressure on it, but we can go away from that. That stat needs to be spread far and wide, because what more evidence do you need?
That's right. In that period, Root himself, of course, has averaged 46, not 52. But anyway, the point's well made. Okay, West Indies, really good within their limitations. I'd say that if I was involved with cricket in the Caribbean now, I would be quite encouraged by the way that a not especially gifted side has played.
I've been so impressed, and actually, it's the kind of performance that, well, unfortunately against England, but still, it's the kind of performance that you take a lot of heart from. As you say, they're not the most gifted Test cricket team, but performances like, you know, Joshua De Silva innings was just, for me, epitomised what this team is about. You know, really struggled early on, but fought really hard, didn't just give it away, and also not something that's synonymous with West Indian cricket. You expect the kind of flash in the pan, big shots, 4s and 6s, you know, bowlers running in and bowling short and quick, but actually the more dogged, attritional cricket is not something you relate to West Indian style of the game, but has been very, very necessary in this series on these surfaces. And full credit to them. They've beaten England at that task as well. And very well led by, Brathwaite, who has his way of playing, but he's stuck to it. And I think from a leadership perspective, that's been great. Their bowling has been good. And even people like Mayers coming in. It's a simple plan, but he was able to execute it. Brilliant.
Let's think back to Josh Silva, who played that fantastic innings that has really set the West Indies up for this win. 23-year-old, got to his 100 with a fine shot, having fought so hard for his runs, and then finally the last 20 of them seemed to come easy to him. It was an innings of substance, of character, and because of that, actually, of great charm, and so too was his interview after it had all finished.
I think the emotion said it all. Tears just came to my eyes instantaneously. It's going to come to me now. It means the most, and the whole world. Thanks to God and my parents, everybody supporting me. It means the whole world.
You mentioned your parents there. What has been that sort of relationship with them coming into this moment?
They've backed me 100% through all of the downs, all of the ups. They've always been there. They were in Barbados. I couldn't do it there, but I'm sure they're very happy to watch it on TV and see me do it here.
To score the 100 with Jayden Seales, your club mate, your good friend at the other end.
He told me he has my back, and I backed him 100%. He told me he's going to get me there, and he did, so I can't thank him enough for the role he played.
The number of runs that you added with the lower order, what was the challenge? What was the technique in doing it?
Trusting them. The most I could have done is trust them. Give them 2 balls to face, sometimes even more, and they batted a whole inning. Without them, I couldn't do this, so all credit goes to them. I just played my part.
The moment after getting to the 100 and then walking off, what was going through your mind there with that decision?
I thought I hit it. Just reviewed it, just for reviewing its sake, and it just happened I didn't, so I'll take the average. It'll help a lot.
What pleased you most, Josh, about the 100? What pleased you most in terms of stroke play?
Just taking my time, batting balls. I got a lot of stick out there for having a low strike rate, but it didn't matter to me. Just taking my time playing in my game and not getting out of it. When I got the chance to score, I did, and just so happened I got there.
Yeah, that was actually the interview straight after the innings, and they're always good, aren't they, when you, as they say in the business, you doorstep the player and get him when the sweat is still running down his brow. A great guy, he seems to me, and just what West Indies cricket need going forward. In fact, there's a few guys in this team that look like that to me. Just to correct a stat from a moment ago, in that period of those averages I was talking about, Burns is 30 down to Hales is 27, which is since January 2015. Joe Root actually averaged 49.4 over that period, so he was on the verge of 50. Okay, so we're talking about the West Indies camp. Impressed with the batting, but very impressed with some of these young bowlers too. Just as much for their discipline, I think, as anything else. Here's Jayden Seales.
Jayden, thank you very much for your time. If we go back to day 3 and your batting partnership with Joshua Da Silva, how do you feel about ushering him to his 100?
I'm very pleased. I obviously told him when I came out there to bat, don't try anything different. But the way you're batting right through the game, and I'll get you to 100. I'll do my best to stay out there to get to the 100.
You're batting on its own. How diligently are you working on that aspect?
Every opportunity I get to bat, I'll go in next and bat as long as possible and try to out as least times as possible. Coming back from, I think, the past few series, Jason was telling me at one point in time I need to get someone to 100. I need to bat almost 60 balls. So being able to do it yesterday and that day was very good for me.
Leading wicket taker for the West Indies in the series, how are you feeling about your success?
Very pleased with my performance, seeing that, the pitches weren't the easiest to bowl on, and then coming here to Grenada where I had a little more assistance and was able to get wickets at regular intervals. Putting in a good effort for the team was a good feeling for me.
Did you have to adjust anything in terms of length or line given the different nature of the surface?
I think this pitch, being fuller is not as good as the other pitches because it's easier to score when the ball is fuller, even though it's swinging. So I think bowling into the pitch is the plan for this wicket.
Thank you very much for your time, Jayden.
Those interviews done by Ian Bishop, and he's another real good youngster, just 20 years of age, and I think the discipline in the bowling has been a signal of clearer thinking in West Indies cricket in general, and players being able to adapt to the questions asked of them by coaching staff. Fascinating, actually, to watch their revival during this match. Okay, we're going to turn to the odds now. I'll be very interested to listen to Sandro here. It's 888 Sport, of course.
Form Focus on talkSPORT 2 with 888sport. What's your thinking? Download the app today. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
And Sandro Michele is our man.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mark. When we spoke 24 hours ago, I did say that I was confident that it was going to be a good day's play for England, and we were going to be talking about England being favourites to win this third and final Test match. Of course, that isn't the case, unfortunately, and you're probably going to get a little bit more of an impassioned rant from me about the failings in English cricket than you are at many prices, because this match is pretty much done and dusted. The West Indies now 200 to 1 on to win this Test match and wrap up the series. The draw is 100 to 1. England are 50 to 1. It's nigh on impossible, isn't it, to see anything other than a West Indies victory. Another terrible day's performance from England, both with the ball and with the bat, to be honest. The tail wagged far longer than it should have done, and then another capitulation batting. We do still have a couple of wickets that need to go down, and who knows, maybe if the unthinkable happens and we see a really strong 9th and 10th wicket stand, we might just be able to salvage, first of all, some pride. Maybe not a victory, but certainly some pride. Chris Wokes is in bat at the moment. We go 2 to 1 on that he scores under 24.5 runs. It's 13 to 8 over 24.5 runs. And the other key point is, what is this second innings total for England going to be? At the moment, we think it's going to be under 124.5 runs. That is 2 to 1 on. It's 6 to 4 that we score over 124.5 runs. We have seen the West Indies tail wag, haven't we, in that incredible century from Silva yesterday. So maybe, just maybe, it is possible. It'd be great to see just if we could establish a little bit of pride in our performance. But it hasn't been a very good 3 days at all, has it? Let's hope things get better. I don't think we are going to be speaking tomorrow, though, gents.
I don't think we're going to be speaking tomorrow, Sandro, either. Thanks very much for your time, mate. Those are the latest odds with 888sport. Gamble responsibly, be 18 and over, and remember the website, begambleaware.org.
Form Focus on talkSPORT 2 with 888sport. Official betting partner of talkSPORT 2. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Exclusive international cricket live. The West Indies versus England on talkSPORT 2.
White and Jordan's supercharged weekend preview on talkSPORT with the new Renault Traffic. Big space for big things. From powerhouse Premier League clashes and full throttle grudge matches on the grid. Sparks will fly as the most well-connected duo in sport look ahead to another action-packed weekend. White and Jordan's supercharged weekend preview. Friday morning from 10 on talkSPORT with the new Renault Traffic. Celebrating 40 years of helping the nation's businesses. Search new Renault Traffic.
Wow, the last 20 years of football. It started with the Barclays Premier League. The Invincibles ruled, Rooney debuted at 16, Aguero made history, and we dreamt with Leicester. Then the era of the Barclays Women's Super League began. Miedema netted 6, and the Women's North London Derby broke attendance records. For 20 years, Barclays has been committed to the game we all love, as sponsors of the Premier League, and now the Barclays Women's Super League. And it's still all to play for. Visit barclays.com/20 years.
This is the place for rugby fans, where you can explore the history of world rugby and relive some of rugby's most celebrated moments of all time, where you can see the world's oldest international football jersey and trophy, and where you can tour the home of rugby and even walk through the famous Players' Tunnel. This is the World Rugby Museum and Twickenham Stadium Tour. Book now at worldrugbymuseum.com.
Sam, put down that spoon. It's time to go to the movies.
It's 7 a.m.
Popcorn o'clock with a Samsung Galaxy S22 series.
But I've got work.
Does work have a dynamic AMOLED 2X display?
No. What's on?
Entertainment. That's what, with 12 months Disney Plus on us.
Dingy.
Get back out there with the epic Samsung Galaxy S22 series. Buy yours at Samsung.com. Disney Plus auto-renews at £7.99 a month. 18 plus only. Terms apply.
At Trade Point, we know that big jobs can mean a big shop around. We have a wide range of products from kitchens to plumbing to electrical or timber, so you can get it all in one place. 7 days a week, making big jobs smaller. So, for all you need, when you need it, get to TradePoint or go to tradepoint.co.uk.
Here we go, a quick shop at a local BP, a scanner of BP Me rewards card. She's got a promotion code. Back home now, hubby's got his feet up.
Some tired legs out there.
Sidesteps the dog and squares up to the laptop. The code goes into the box and it's there! Oh, she's won a pair of Premier League tickets.
Don't see this very often.
Well, actually, there's a pair to be won every hour and a half.
At the end of the day, it's all about 90 minutes.
Scan your BP Me rewards card between 6 a.m. and midnight for the chance to win Premier League tickets. Closes 2nd of May 2022. Full T's and C's at bpmerewards.co.uk/scan to score.
Exclusive international cricket live. The West Indies versus England on talkSPORT 2.
96 not out, the lead's 89 for the West Indies. Overton in, gives himself some room again, and he's gone down through long, on for 4 more. He runs down the wicket with his arms in the air, roaring his delight. A maiden test 100, a scream of pleasure, almost disbelief. What a fabulous, fabulous innings. And he looks like he's briefly overcome with emotion. What a job he has done for his team, and what a job he has done for himself. And honestly, that celebration, I mean, it does make you very, very happy for the young batsman wicketkeeper. Congratulations, Joshua de Silva.
Well, players are on their way to the middle. We've just been talking about South Africa's fabulous win against India in the Women's World Cup, and the fact that West Indies qualified. And Neil Manthorpe was telling me about the camera that was in the West Indies team room, and the joy of the news that result meant that they qualified for a semi-final against Australia. There'll be some pretty pleased England cricketers too, because it also meant that England qualified for a semi-final against South Africa. So that's been a heck of a tournament, that Women's World Cup. Great fun to watch, and so many tight games.
Yeah, it's incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a World Cup with this many tight games. When you needed 3 to win off 2 balls, and you have your best player caught it long on, and then it's a no ball. The whole thing was just, it was bizarre, and it was a no. I don't think I've ever seen a tighter no ball in my life as well. Right. It was so tense, that end of that game.
Okay, thanks, Jared. We're ready to get going here. Mike Atherton's waiting for us over there in Grenada, and Neil Manthorpe's microphone ready here.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark Nicholas. Michael, I have in my bookshelf a copy of the book that you wrote on punditry and gambling, and it's fascinating. I don't do it myself, but I am interested in it. And Jared Kimber's been scouring betting sites to see what odds you could get on England. I mean, with Jack Leach and Saqib Mahmood already having added 90 in the first innings for the 10th wicket, and Chris Wokes has got a test 100. The best he could find is 64 to 1. Would you spare a tenner?
Oh, I think we're in Headingley 81 territory. You'd need at least 500 to 1.
That's exactly the conclusion that we came to. Jaden Seal's first ball of the morning down the leg side. A flick and a miss from Chris Wokes. And the first delivery has been bowled. We had a little sweepstake to see how many balls we thought we would have in the day before the match was concluded. Our bets varied between 35 and 140. How long do you think it might go?
I was going around halfway between those marks, something around about the 60 or 70 balls mark. An hour and 10, an hour and 20 minutes should do it. But who knows? As you say, Chris Wokes with a test 100, runs for Leach and Mahmood in the first innings, but one thing's for sure, they're going to have to play a hell of a lot better than they did yesterday. That was a really grisly day for England, both in the ball and in the field, when they were very passive in the morning, and then when the batsmen failed really to withstand any pressure in the afternoon. There's just a delay. Somebody's moving behind the bowler's arm, and the umpire has had to wander off to the far end as a rather weary Jerusalem is belted out by the small numbers of Barmy army that are here.
Is it small? Is there a very noticeably small turnout?
It's not bad, given that the match could last about 10 minutes. It's not bad, to be honest. England supporters are always exceptionally loyal, aren't they? And there's one or two locals in the ground as well.
And there you go, Jerusalem completed. Here's Seals around the wicket, bowls another one down the leg side. Chris Woakes shaping to pull, and then bails out of it. Is Jayden Seals just struggling with an injury? He looks a bit uncomfortable.
We'll see. He's walking back to his mark now, and he looks okay just to the naked eye. Keep an eye on him as he's running in. They've set a field for short pitch bowling. Woakes, of course, is suspect to the short ball, so there's a short leg holder at leg gully. 3 men out on the leg side. There's going to be a lot of short stuff coming.
Here's Jayden Seals once again. The 20-year-old has had a very fine series around the wicket. Bowls and short and pulled by Woakes down towards long leg, as you say. 3 men out on the boundary. That's Kyle Mayers who does the tidying up. It seems I would understand going to this strategy maybe 20 minutes in. The kick off with the short balls strategy to Woakes is interesting.
Yeah, they've fallen between two extremes, or they've gone to two extremes with Woakes. In Antigua, they basically didn't bowl him a bouncer for the first 40 minutes of his innings. Here they've gone straight to. I suspect somewhere in between is probably the right call. Enough balls, threatening the stumps because we're getting some low bounce, but also just to keep him honest with the occasional bouncer as well.
I'll get you to talk us through the strategy to Jack Leach as well. There's a couple of close catches also on the leg side, leg gully as well. Seals in. Over the wicket to the left-hander, and that's left alone and by Jack Leach. So where's Jack Leach susceptible? How are they trying to get him out?
He's got the best technique of any England batsman. He's the man. Well, they're going for a similar field and a similar ploy. There's a short leg, a man right under his nose on the offside. John Campbell's at leg gully and Jason Holder at slip. So similarly, there'll be a lot of short stuff coming to Leach as well.
Here's Seals once again. First over of the morning. We've had the first run to Chris Woakes. He's double figures on 10. Leach leaves alone outside the off stump, and there's no run. I know you. A part of you means what you said about Jack Leach and his technique, and I read an interesting article. May have been before the Test match, or perhaps it was after the first innings partnership of 90 with Saqib Mahmood, in which it was pointed out just how hard Leach has worked on his batting in the last couple of years, working particularly hard with Marcus Trescothick on the basis that he felt that he might have gained selection had his perception not existed that his batting was so weak in a couple of tests. Here is Seals again. Leach leaves alone, sways out of the way of it, and there's no run. I mean, I suppose he would have to be considered, if it was true that he might have played a few more test matches had he been regarded as a better tail ender. He probably does he have it within him to be considered as a number 8?
Well, I was only seriously joking, if you like, about his technique. Just his method. He's got a pretty good technique, actually. He's clearly limited in batting ability and stroke making ability, but if you just look at the fundamentals of his game and his defence, he's actually pretty sound. As you say, he does a lot of work with Marcus Trescothick. They obviously know each other well from their time at Somerset together and down in Taunton. He uses a Millichampen Hall, which I seem to remember was Trezzy's first bat maker, and they have a little factory just behind the pavilion down in Taunton. And he puts a lot of work in, and he's got a pretty sound defensive technique, so he's quite hard to dislodge. As you say, tail enders these days have to be able to bat. Seen the value of it in this game, for sure.
We certainly have. Man of the moment, Kyle Mayers, is going to bowl the second over of the morning, and he's in full wide outside the off stump, and that's left alone by Chris Woakes. The comparisons, I know that you would have seen them, and you may have made a few yourself. I haven't actually found the time this morning. There's a lot happening to read your report from yesterday, but the comparisons with the classic English medium pacer who bowls at 70 miles an hour and picks up wickets for fun. Kyle Mayers has been compared to a few of them, and that's pushed away square of the wicket on the offside by Chris Woakes, and a rare couple of runs conceded by Kyle Mayers, who's been likened to the one and only Darren Stevens. It probably brought a smile to your face, others.
Well, yeah, he's very different tactics here to Wokes, because of course he's not quick enough to bowl the short stuff, so he's got just an orthodox feel for the kind of gentle medium pace that he bowls. I mean, his figures were Curtly Ambrose-like yesterday, weren't they, at one stage, 5 for 9, but he's anything but Ambrose in pace and hostility. He's just gentle, 75 maybe miles an hour at tops. But he wobbles it about, and he has a knack of getting good players out, and he certainly had a very good all-round match here.
He might as well be Curtly Ambrose with 2 slips and a gully for Jack Leach. Here he is, Kyle Mayers, and that's back of a length, and Leach plays it nicely off the back foot defensively up towards mid-off. Good afternoon, Jared Kimber.
Do you want my favourite stat on Kyle Mayers?
Yeah, I love them all. I just think they're brilliant.
11 tests in, he has made 664 runs so far. Of those 664 runs, 37.7% of them came in his first test. And he has 20 wickets. 7 wickets of those are in this match. So he has 35% of his wickets.
Punched off the back foot by Leach. Well, that's a good shot, and he'll get at least a couple. So he's got a good, sound, solid defensive technique, as you heard Michael Atherton saying, limited in his scoring options, but that is a good, decent punch for a couple.
So 35% of his wickets in this match. So 37% of his runs in one game and 35% of his wickets in another game. Someone on Twitter said he's like Garfield Sobers in installments.
That's exactly right. He does that. 210 not out on debut in the 4th innings of a test match is extraordinary. Defensive once more from Jack Leach. Pushes it straight back to Kyle Mayers. 109 for 8. Is there any... we were speaking to Sandra Di Michele from 888 Sport. He was giving us their odds, and he was talking about England at least... restoring a little bit of dignity and pride. I don't know what they would have to do in order to do that today. I mean, after the debacle of yesterday, but I don't even know whether that's whether it's possible. There's a change in the field now for Jack Leach. They put a man on the drive at short, wideish mid-off. So just the 1 slip and a gully now. 3 on the offside, 2 on the onside, and the catcher on the drive. Mayers in, bowls. Leach does drive. Full-length delivery. And there's no run. England lead by 16. 109 for 8.
I think it is important, though, even if you do lose a test match, and there's every likelihood England will lose this test match, it is important how you go down. I mean, we can all recall the end of the Ashes in Hobart, and that's that image of Ollie Robinson backing away off the cut strip, basically in abject surrender. That is the image that will stand for that series forevermore. Whenever you hear about the Ashes 2022, 21-22, that image is the one that you will see. So even if you're going to lose a game, you can go down with a good deal of spirit and dignity and pride, for sure.
109 for 8, England. They resumed on 103 for 8. Here is Jayden Seales continuing. Short pitched delivery, as we expect, to Chris Wokes, who plays a decent pull shot down towards long leg, and it's fielded by Kyle Mayers. It was ghastly, wasn't it, in Hobart? I mean, and, you know, part of you is going, well, it's not Ollie Robinson's fault. He's not there to bat. But it was just, as you said, that's the abiding final image.
Without doubt. And, you know, see a tail ender backing away off the cut strip is a terrible image for any team, because tail end runs and resistance shows the spirit of a team, for sure.
Seales in. Oh, Leach gets a short one and fends it off. It was in the air for a little while, but falls well short of gully. One thing that would be an absolute dead cert to bet on is Jack Leach not backing away and Ollie Robinsoning himself.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of cricketer he is. You can criticise his perhaps lack of I don't know, imagination with the ball or whatever. What you can't criticise with Leach is the fact that he really grabs every inch of ability that he's got and makes the most of it.
Leg gully, an orthodox gully, short leg and deepish silly point. 4 men around as Seals bowls another bouncer, and Leach watches it carefully, sways out of the way, although he didn't need to sway. It was pretty wide of the off stump. Those 4 men around the bat are quite deep, aren't they? They're all forming almost a perfect square around Leach.
They are, although they all Roach came in then from mid-off, Holder came in from gully. I don't know whether they were looking at the pitch or having a little word with Jack Leach, but he was suddenly surrounded by West Indian fielders.
Leach has 3, Chris Woakes has 14. England are 110 for 8. Here is Seals once again, bouncer, and flies over the shoulder of Leach into the gloves of Joshua De Silva. Did you happen to hear whether Joshua De Silva he's got that quite badly damaged finger, hasn't he? Matt Pryor was speculating that when he went off, he was out for about 20-25 minutes. He might have had, what did you call it again, Matt? A block injection, which apparently can last quite a long period of time. It's obviously just to mask the pain of a potential fracture. Any update on his injury?
Well, he's out there at the moment, obviously, and we haven't heard that he's had an injection.
Here's Seals again. And the wicket falls. Oh, that's chipped up into the air, and it falls short of the fielder, Kemar Roach at mid-off. No run.
Yeah, I know the injection that Matt's talking about. I remember a test match in Melbourne in 1995 when Shane Warne got a hat-trick and Alec broke his finger and had one of those ring block injections into his busted index finger in the second innings and went out to bat. So as you say, it can mask the pain. It doesn't heal the fracture, but it just means you can kind of get on with it without that searing pain.
Horrible thought. Counterintuitive as well, isn't it? Here's Seals again. Bowles goes full this time, and Leach props forward and nudges it defensively up to Kemar Roach at mid-off. He's remains on 3, does Jack Leach. Chris Woakes has 14, 110 for 8. The West Indies have had a couple of peculiar moments in this match, and they've suddenly, in a position of great strength, have suddenly used a couple of part-time bowlers, and they almost willfully sort of lowered the intensity. It's been peculiar. I don't expect we'll see that this morning, but maybe they will if these two last half an hour.
Well, what we've seen in the game, and this has usually been towards the end of each day's play, is that as the ball has softened, the pitch has kind of gone to sleep a little bit, and if you show enough watchfulness and care in your batting, you can stay in. Of course, the ball is 56 overs old here now, 53 at the start of play, and therefore, you know, we're in that perfect sweet spot where the tail enders have managed to stick around and score some runs in the match so far.
Kyle Mayers to bowl his second over, the 4th of the morning. England leading by 17 now. Mayers up to the crease, bowls, and Woakes drives very sweetly through the offside. That's a good-looking cover drive. He had to reach for it, and he reached for it very successfully. And it's gone for 4 through deep extra cover, wide, long off. That's a good-looking shot from Chris Woakes.
Sure was. That's his shot, really. If you said what's Woakes' signature shot, it's that attractive cover drive, and that's why teams tend to go to a short pitch ploy against Woakes, because they don't want to see him get that big front foot down the pitch, and he's a bit more suspect to the short ball. Mayers hasn't really got the pace to do that, so he's going to stick to the plan. There's a slight adjustment to the field. Jermaine Blackwood, who went after that ball like an absolute gazelle, he's just gone to deep cover now, and there are a couple of catches on the offside for the drive.
He is very athletic, Jermaine Blackwood, and it was a great effort from him, so no lack of enthusiasm, as you would expect from the West Indies. Lead of 21, Woakes up to 18. Here's Mayers, and that's blocked solidly by Woakes, and there's no run. Kyle Mayers began this morning with overnight figures of 13 overs, 7 maidens, 5 for 9, which at the time was the second cheapest 5-for ever against England, but his figures have exploded. He's doubled the number of runs conceded. 9 to 18 now. Mayer's in again, full and wide, outside the off stump. It was interesting, Jade Dernbach yesterday was talking about Mayer's being the perfect pace for this pitch.
Possibly. He certainly had a lot of success. I don't know how far you can put that down to him, the pitch or the batting or a combination of all three, but he's not the only one to have taken cheap wickets against England of late. Think of Scott Boland and Axar Patel, so he ain't on his own.
Mayers once again up to the crease, and Wokes comes forward and prods it out towards cover, and there's no run. What were Boland's figures again? 6 for 7, wasn't it?
Well, I kept embarrassing myself. I was doing a bit of radio over there in the Ashes, and every time he came on, I said, well, his average has got to go down. And you know, one thing's for certain, his average is going to go up, his bowling average. And he kept going down and down and down. It's unbelievable.
Darren Kimber will tell us at the end of the over what Scott Boland's test average is at the moment. Mayer's in again, and forward comes Wokes, playing defensively up towards mid-off. No run.
We were having a running battle to see whether he could keep it below the legendary bowling average of Father Marriott, who played one game for England, took 11 wickets, I think, at some ridiculous average of about 7. Scotty Boland was challenging that.
Last ball of the 4th over of the morning. Kyle Mayers, 5 for 18 currently. Forward comes Wokes to the last ball of the over, and pushes it up towards mid-off. So, first 20 minutes safely negotiated by England. 114 for 8. Here's Jarrod Kimber with that statistical nugget, and then it'll be Mark Nicholas.
The greatest bowling average in the world, minimum 15 wickets. Scott Boland, 9.55, just behind George Lohmann's 10.75. On the other side of George Lohmann is Axar Patel at 12.43. And then, you know, all the way down to Kyle Jamieson, who's letting the team down at the moment. He's got to get him on some more green tops. He's only at 18.72, really letting that inflate.
There are 2 Australians with quirky averages, aren't there? There's a batsman too. You must know who that is.
Adam Voges.
Yeah.
Second greatest batter in the history of cricket.
He's just behind Bradman. Well, not just, he's behind Bradman.
I got a quiz question for you both.
Go on then.
Highest test average of all time is an Australian.
Well, you're obviously allowing it to be 1 match or 2 matches or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's have Alzari Joseph in the meantime to Jack Leach. He bangs that into the middle of the pitch, and Leach sways beautifully. Watches the ball all the time, does Jack Leach, which is a clever trick when you're batting. Right, highest average of all time. So there's someone obviously better than Bradman.
Well, it's a very moving tale. One young lad called Norman Calloway, who got a double 100 in one first-class game. Sorry, not a test game, first-class average. And went off to war and died on the Western Front. 217, I think.
Leach is ready now and plays very straight. Full ball, and he plays it from the crease, hits it back to Joseph and holds his body shape as if to sort of prove it to the bowler. This is a hard man to get out. Is sort of what he's saying. He got quite a big movement across his stumps, back and across. Not unlike the way they used to move in the days of playing on uncovered pitches, where you very rarely lunged forward because the ball popped at you and you'd be meeting it, and the 2 forces of energy were not a good mixture for surviving. Here's Joseph again. So that's left alone outside off stump. So you waited on the back foot for the ball on those wet pitches, but you don't see that many now. More triggers probably at there's the little press forward with the front foot than that back and across move.
Yeah, a combination of factors. The uncovered pitches that you mentioned, helmets and protection, mean that batsmen tend to come at the bowler a bit more. They're the aggressor now, whereas pre-helmets it was the other way round, and bowlers were on the charge and batsmen a little bit back and across.
Joseph again, and again dead straight back. This time right on the back foot and about chest height. Leach looking impenetrable. Yeah, Tony Gregg, we were talking about yesterday, and I was explaining how he believed that a tall man had to stand upright with his bat up at stump height and then get his weight all transferred forward into the ball. And he said, of course, once helmets came, that was A, a whole lot easier, but B, it suddenly made more sense because you took a lot of the fear out of it, and you thought, yeah, this is the way to bat as a tall man. Left alone by Leach outside off stump, and he's looked in no trouble this morning at all. I mean, it's looked so easy batting this morning for them both, in fact.
Yeah, that pitch is flat, ball is old. Just going back to the helmets, I think that's been the biggest change in cricket in the last 50 years. It's changed that balance between bat and ball absolutely fundamentally. Obviously saved a lot of people as well along the way.
Yeah.
Tailenders like Jack Leach, it's a big thing.
Joseph bangs that in, and Leach actually tried to work that square on the leg side, but he missed it. It hit his thigh pad pretty hard and then just rolled out onto the pitch. So he survives. 114 for 8. England leading by 21, so they've extended their overnight lead by 11, thanks mainly to a couple of pleasant drives by Chris Woakes. What's the sort of chat, Athers? Presumably, you know, the evenings back at the hotel, restaurants, it's all about England and route and the future?
Yeah, there's a lot of chat about that. Obviously, lots of things up in the air, lots of positions to be filled at the ECB, but a lot of speculation around Joe's position at the end of this game and moving forward. Don't think there's an expectation that he'll stand down if things go as we expect them to today, but
left alone outside off stump as Mayers comes in again at gentle-ish medium pace, 117 kilometres per hour, and easy for Stokes when it's that wide.
But I don't know that for certain. I mean, I felt, you know, he should have gone at the end of the Ashes. I can't see that there's any justification for carrying on, but he was given full backing by Andrew Strauss, and I don't think he's going to give it away. We shall see.
Here's Mayers again. That is straight, and Woakes is forward and pushes it to mid-on, and it's extraordinary to watch this cricket because there's so little venom in Mayers' bowling today as against, it seemed, an almost explosive threat. Yesterday I heard you liken him to, or liken his figures, not him I should say, liken his figures to Curtly Ambrose, but today it really is dobber stuff. Mayers again. And again, an easy forward defence by Chris Woakes. Jarros is going to come in a second.
Athers was just talking about the helmets and how they've changed things for tailenders. I just had a look from 1970 until 1979, which is the period where we started bouncing tailenders, where they needed helmets. Tailenders averaged 12.42. In the 42 years since, the final three have also averaged 12.42. So I think the real difference isn't the average, it's in how many balls per innings they manage to face now.
They soak up Mayers now. And that's another excellent forward defensive, but really Woakes would say to himself, if I can't play this, I can't bat. And that in no way diminishes Mayers' performance, which yesterday was quite startling. But it does show that it's a flat old pitch and that really England shouldn't be in this horrendous situation, leading by 21 with only 2 wickets in hand. This is average fare. Mayers again, and that's wide of our stump and left alone. No ball has done anything this morning, and the pitch hasn't done anything. There's been no uneven bounce. It's difficult to judge uneven pace because there isn't much pace, but even Joshua De Silva behind the stumps with his injured finger has had no trouble getting his hand into the right place to take the ball because he's had so much time to establish the place to put him. Mayers again, That's also wide of off stump. It could be at the end of that over, with England still 114 for 8 here on talkSPORT 2 and incidentally on YouTube, that Craig Brathwaite gets him out of the attack now and gets Kemar Roach into the attack. So yes, that's right, positions to fill and route the subject. So your instinct is that A, he won't, and B, perhaps he shouldn't. It's better to get home and chat to the family and chat to the powers that be and make a considered decision rather than an emotional one.
Well, there are two questions there. One, my instinct is that he won't, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But as I said, I thought he should have gone at the end of the Ashes. So, yeah.
No, sure, and I absolutely hear you, and lots of us would have agreed with you then, and I just wondered if you think he should go now, or given the sort of reanointment, if you like, by Andrew Strauss, whether he should hang in there for the English summer. I wonder what you've now thought on that, given Strauss's support for him.
Well, I think that's what he'll do. I just, having been in that situation, know that there comes a point where you realise the game is up.
Yeah, and but Athers, watching his face as he left the field yesterday when he was out caught in the slips, I thought that was the face of resignation to a number of things, not least the job.
Yeah, I agree. And then there was a moment when Ben Foakes was run out and the camera panned to Joe on the balcony. He had his head in his hands ever so briefly and then looked up to the big screen and realised he was on the big screen and kind of sat a bit more upright. But yeah, it was a telling image.
I'm yet to see any of that. There's the one wicket I haven't seen. I wasn't on commentary, I was next door, and I haven't seen the run out, and I haven't seen Root head in hands. It's a much quicker ball from Joseph that bounces and climbs actually, and was taken at head high by De Silva. Again, Leach left it alone. Joseph has switched to bowl round the wicket at him. I think with Leach you've got to keep doing that, changing your angle, because he's definitely settled into the rhythm of defence very well. I heard you talking earlier about his technique, and outside of Joe Root it probably is the tightest defensive technique amongst all the England players. And it's pretty simple, that's why he's harder to get out. If you add a strong mind to that, which he's clearly got, you should be hard to get out on a flat deck. And another same sort of thing, it's that ball didn't fly through at all. In fact, to show the uneven bounce, it was taken down at shin height by De Silva, but Leach also swaying back from it. The pavilion here, I don't know if it is it actually the pavilion? There are two buildings at either end, but this salmon pink structure, I haven't seen that colour at any other cricket ground. Beautiful pastel colours of all the shuttle houses on the... what's it called? Is it Centurion Hill or Century Hill?
Cemetery Hill.
Cemetery Hill, thank you. And that's a good shot by Leach, very good. Only get a single for it, but he played it really well. He played it down. It was one of those little whips off the hip, and he gets a single. He used the pace of the ball because of the angle coming across him and worked it down to long leg for a single. A simple piece of batting, but an efficient one. 115 for 8. Yes, that's right. It's a great place, isn't it, Grenada?
Oh, it's fabulous. It's such a scenic journey to the ground, and the ground itself very pretty, as you say, with that Cemetery Hill overlooking, and all these chattel houses perched precariously and built into the hillside, and the Caribbean Sea is literally just
literally over it,
50 yards to the right.
Great. There's another stadium I've seen from the high shot, the drone or the crane shot. It looks like an athletic stadium. Joseph to Wokes, who chips it straight up in the air. And what's it hit? He's been given out and he reviews it immediately, so he clearly hasn't hit it because he didn't walk in any direction other than 2, 3, 4 feet towards short leg, as if to say, I'm not going anywhere, the other way is out, I haven't hit that. So it's going to be reviewed.
Can you move on to front on, please? Yeah, definitely a deflection off the thigh pad. I'll need ultra edge to see if it also comes off the bat or the glove. Just waiting on ultra edge, Greg. edge coming up. It's a flat line, it passes under the bat. Keep rolling through. Makes contact with the thigh pad. Keep rolling through all the way up. Keep rolling. Keep rolling. Keep rolling. Yep. There's no spike. Ball is away from the glove. Okay, I'm satisfied. There's no bat involved. I'm ready to go back on field to Gregory. Gregory, I'm going to have to ask you to overturn your decision to not out. You're on screen now. Signal now.
Well, Gregory Brathwaite having to overturn his decision, and we've seen the umpires had to do that quite a lot in this series. Generally, I think the standard of world umpiring is remarkably high, and I suspect the confidence of the DRS has helped that, but it's been a difficult game for them. So Woakes was right, he didn't hit it, and we continue again with Joseph round the wicket. And Woakes is back right across to off stump and works that for a single behind square on the leg side, in between short leg and leg gully. Woakes there was almost Steve Smith-like in the way that he was right across his stumps and playing right on the back foot. In fact, he's so far back towards the stumps that it only needs half a step more, or the third of a step more, and he would connect with the stumps, I think. One of the reports the other day, how did they describe something like from a school teacher to bearded bully, Woakes in a day when he started to take some wickets at last. That's full. Good attempt at that straight Yorker to trap Leach LBW, but it just goes down the leg side, so it's harmless, and Leach practices the stroke again. Cross that he missed the chance to score off an errant ball, and we now get a shot from television of the little marina where the glamorous sailing boats are moored, at least for the moment. Woakes has 19, Leach has 4, and England, well, the difference 21 between the two sides. Matt Pryor was, saying that it's all very well hammering Root all the time, but he hasn't got the cattle.
Oh, there's no question that, you can change the captain. You're not going to cure all ills. This is not a good England side, and England are paying the price for having not taken first-class cricket seriously enough for a number of years. But that said, I'll take you back to yesterday morning in a minute, where this game was lost.
We've got Carl Mayers again. Bowls a straight full ball, a floater of a ball, really, that is just dropped on by, literally, he dropped his bat on the ball, did Woakes, and it went nowhere. There's quite a strong offside field, and there's no run for it. The score's 116 for 8. England are 23 in front.
You can look back at moments in the game. Alzari Joseph, when he came in, West Indies were 127 for 7. He nicked his third ball through second slip. There was only one slip in place. Then the slips came in. There's lots of moments like that a captain can have an impact upon the game.
Yeah, well, as the guys in this room will tell you, that slip moment was the one where I lost the plot a bit.
and yesterday morning, Josh De Silva set the field back before he'd hardly played a shot. Now, I repeat, you change the captain, you're not going to cure all ills. This is a poor team. You're not going to transform that overnight. But when you've been doing the job for 5 years and 60-odd games, there comes a point where, you have nothing more to offer.
Myers again, dead straight. So too the batter Chris Woakes on the front foot. No run. I go back to Lords against India on that Monday morning when he set everybody back and they got away from England and went on, of course, to blowing them away with the ball in the afternoon as much as anything, simply because they handed the initiative over in the morning, and that changed the mindset of the two sides. That was the moment when, for me, Mayers bowls again, and actually that's a good line, and Woakes is sort of thinking of playing it and then tries not to, but it's too late, and it does hit the bat and just runs off into the gully for no run. I think that he's as you do, I know, you're an admirable man doing a damn difficult job and a fantastic player, but not everybody is suited to the captaincy, particularly over a long period of time. Mayers again. Woakes comes forward and plays a pretty simple little defensive shot, but 5 dot balls in a row. The cricket this morning has felt gentle. I thought the intensity from the West Indies yesterday, with bat in the morning, with ball in the afternoon, was in marked contrast to England, who in a way looked a little bit as if they were going through the motions. That might be a bit harsh, but they certainly weren't as intense about their cricket as West Indies were. Mayers bowls again, and Stokes blocks on the front foot again. The end of that over. Athers, thank you very much. Great to hear you. Who knows, the game may extend and we may get more of you. But great to chat and great to have you on board. See you soon, I hope. The lead is 23. The score is 116 for 8 on talkSPORT 2. And we're going to hand over to Steve Harmison and Mark Butcher.
Beautiful paradise island that is Grenada. And England, well, they got off to a steady start, added 13 runs in the first 35 minutes of play. Wokes 19, Leach 4. Leach defending bravely, stoutly, ducks underneath another short ball from Alzari Joseph from around the wicket. Chris Wokes has peeled off a couple of nice drives for extra cover off the bowling of the wrecker, that is Carl Mayers. And everything has been reasonably calm. We've had a DRS decision overturned. Gregory Brathwaite gave Chris Wokes out, caught at short leg. And when the ball had just bounced straight off his thigh pad, went between his arms, so I guess it was close to the gloves. But there was no contact. Wokes reviewed straight away, and that was the end of it. 116 for 8 then. And Joseph is in round the wicket to a crouching Jack Leach, who defends on the leg side. It's taken on the first bounce by the man at short leg, and again there's no run. A terrific defensive technique, Jack Leach, hasn't he? Yeah, he has. So's Chris Wokes when the ball's pitched up. Looks as though he's a proper batsman. Values, enjoys being out there, doesn't mind sort of wearing one, does Jack Leach. Michael Athert summed it up perfectly. He gets every ounce of the ability he's got out of himself, and he's got a great attitude for that. He certainly has. He's in again, back across his stumps, and then half forward to a pitched up delivery from Joseph, who went for the stumps and defended to mid-on again with the straightest of bats by Jack Leach. Yeah, I said exactly the same thing on the TV down there, is that he's not by any means the most talented player out there on show, but my goodness me, is he the grittiest and most determined. He works hard in his game and does the basics, particularly with the bat. He does the basics unbelievably well. Forward and back, straight bat, high elbow, soft grip on that bottom hand, stares down the ball relentlessly. As Joseph is in once more around the wicket, goes for the Yorker, gets it in there, but Jack Leach is equal to it once again. Yeah, well kept out. Good ball from Alzari Joseph. Yeah, as a bowler you feel as though Jack Leach he makes you work hard to get him out. Some tail enders you feel as though you can, a little bit of chin music, one in and around the rib cage as a fast bowler, and you slowly but surely get to see a little bit more of the stumps. But not with Jack. He's a brave lad who, his attitude's spot on, especially with the bat, and again he's proved in this game that he values his wicket. Joseph in again, and it's pitched up once more, and Jack Leach defends, bowler picks it up in his follow through. The West Indies, they've chirped away. They've kind of been at both England batters this morning. Carl Mayers doesn't seem to have the same control over the ball that he did yesterday. He made the comment that it felt like he had some sort of antenna in it. It was like it was a remote control ball. He could just make it do whatever he wanted after he let it go. But there's been very little movement from him today. 61.5 overs bowled with this ball now, and it certainly seems to have gone soft, and all of the spite and menace has gone out of it as Joseph is in once again, and that's a short ball, and Jack Leach plays that absolutely magnificently. Just sways, drops his hand, sways out of the way, top half of the body. The ball passes over the top of the stumps, and that is the end of the 62nd over. 116 for 8. England lead by 23. You're listening to live coverage of the third Apex Test match between West Indies and England, live from Grenada here on talkSPORT 2.
It was always going to be the question who comes out and bowls first up for the West Indies this morning, and the natural answer and the natural guy to do it would be in Carl Mears. He's on a piece of string yesterday, hitting that crack about 8 metres from the stumps, and it didn't always get up. The other one bounced and was nipping back and caused England all sorts of problems. But we did a pitch report probably 2 hours ago, Butch, and everywhere you described on how to bat on this surface against someone like Carl Mears, Chris Folkes has done that. He's got himself forward.
Do you reckon he was watching?
I think he must have been watching. Yeah, he must have been watching. He must have been, because everything you said a right-hander needed to do, and you sort of explained it and described it perfectly well for an international left-hander, but you did it right-handed. But saying that, the way you described it as a right-hander, I think if you put a right-handed bat in your hand, you probably would have done it better than some of our right-handers in this team who have gone so far in this Test match. So, joking aside, I think Chris Folkes has listened to what you said. He's got forward and tried to smother any sort of indifference bounce, and so far so good.
Kemar Roach then replaces Carl Mears. Oh my goodness, what a catch! That is extraordinary. Kemar Roach has bowled a loosener really down the leg side, and Chris Folkes has just turned it off his legs, and it flew off the middle of the bat. Jason Holder, stationed at leg slip, has just stuck out one of those periscopic arms, and the ball has gone straight into his right hand, and the West Indies have their breakthrough.
Well, how's your luck, Chris Folkes? Tough time with the ball, and now from batting so well in this series, and again, go back to how's your luck, Chris Folkes, because there's things gone against him on this trip, and unfortunately, 6'7", massive wingspan, has thrown out an arm when you feel as though you've got a good piece of leg glance on it. It would have been it would have flown to the boundary for 4, and Jason Holder's just chucked a mitt out and it stuck. Chris Folkes walking off the field, and I don't want to there's going to be a lot of negative things said, but this is the last time we see Chris Folkes walk off a field bat in hand for England overseas, because he hasn't bowled that well. He's batted beautifully well, and his attitude's been first class as ever, but there will undoubtedly be the typical root question, Broad Anderson question. I think the third question would be Chris Folkes, future of him overseas.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a second. His main task, his main job in the team was to lead the bowling attack, and that has not worked out. I'm just looking at the replay again from Jason Holder. It is an absolutely stunning catch. The only man on the field that could have caught it, really. Down to his right as well. It wasn't sort of head or shoulder height. It wasn't an easy height for him to catch. He had to move down and almost backwards to his right, arm at full stretch, and he's got the wingspan of an albatross anyway, and it just went slap bang in the middle of that huge mitt. Kemar Roach celebrates. I mean, let's face it was a pie, and he's managed to break the partnership. West Indies do not care how it happens, but it was a piece of sheer brilliance from the former West Indies captain Jason Holder that sent back Chris Folkes. Well, hero, top scorer of England's first innings, Saqib Mahmood, has made his way out to the middle. He's got plenty of company, catches at short leg, silly point, gets up on the back foot, defends that one to the right of a diving short leg, and there is no run, and the atmosphere is just lifted again in the ground. It was getting a little soporific. It is unbelievably hot here in the mornings. Before we arrived at the ground, maybe 7:45, absolutely burning, and gradually sort of eases off as you get later on into the afternoon. We're unlikely to see later on in the afternoon here today, I would have thought, but you never know. Saqib Mahmood faces up to Kemar Roach, and it depends on the back foot, and sort of angles the bat face a little, and it runs off in front of Gully, and Mahmood is off the mark. 117 for 9 now.
Well, heroes of the first innings are back in a familiar position, punching gloves, trying to convince each other that we've still got a chance, we've still got something to offer in this game. But You're right, Butch. What a catch that was. Seen it again from Jason Holder. There's no other man on the field. There's no other man in Grenada could have caught that. He is big, tall guy, tall man, very flexible. Another impressive character. Jason Holder had a bit of a brain fade with a bat in the first innings, but he's made up for that for sure, because you're right, Kemar Roach just nipped back, going down leg side. Chris Folkes would have been amazed as he turned round not to see that going for 4, and
middled it, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Straight off the middle of the bat.
Yeah, off the face, straight into the middle of Jason Holder's hands, and I think the surprise on Jason Holder's face said it all as well, that he actually not only reached it, he caught it.
Yeah, another magic moment here in Grenada. Kemar Roach will go around the wicket to the left-handed Leach. 2 slips in, big gap between them as Leach is forward, and he clips it crisply off his toes to man stationed at square leg, and there's no run. Dug out some numbers this morning. I was kind of thinking about England collapses. I mean, we've had 101 for 8 this innings. We were
90 for 8
in the first, 114 for 9.
40, was it 50 for 5, 50 for 4, 50 for 5 in the first innings of the first test.
Yeah, I mean the collapses for England under the captaincy of Joe Root. As Roach is in again. Jack Leach plays it off the back foot, and it was in the air for an age, but the man diving forward at point, again it's Jason Holder. Or is it? No, it's not Jason Holder. Who's that at backward point?
Alzari Joseph.
Ah, of course, Alzari Joseph has dived forward but not managed to take the catch. It was a back foot force from Jack Leach. The ball just seemed to stick in the wicket. It went aerially backward of point, seemed to hang in the air for an age, and Alzari diving forward could only catch it on the half volley. Roach is in again. Leach crouches across his crease. Roach goes for the stumps. Leach defends it back to him, and it's the end of a successful and dramatic over from Kemar Roach. 117 for 9. England lead by 24.
Yeah, we had a lot there in that over. A stunning catch. Alzari Joseph obviously thinking about his bowling. Jack Leach played some nice shots actually. He's timed one off his legs. Beautiful, and he's found the fielder, and he's took 2 balls off Kemar Roach off the off stump. Defended them nicely, and you're right, not only has the heat in the kitchen turned up, but just in the ground the noise has just got going again, and a lot more local than England supporters, which is great to see in Grenada, and they're going to likely see a famous West Indian victory in a series which I wouldn't say has been high in quality, but the players that have been on show, but it has been entertaining at times.
Yep, hard fought, and West Indies have just had that little bit more in them during the course of this test match. Bouncer flies over the head of Saqib Mahmood and is called a wide by Greg Brathwaite, also one for the over. I was going back to those collapses. So you had the 2 in this game here, 1 in the first test match, first innings, and basically any time the ball moves laterally, there's the genuine risk that wickets are going to go down in a heap for England. Hobart, Melbourne. I kind of looked up some of the other ones that we've had under the captaincy of Joe Root. We've had 4 where England have lost 10 wickets in a session. So even the collapses in the Ashes and the collapses that we've seen here in this game are not the worst ones we've seen under Joe Root's captaincy.
No, and that's a frightening thing.
As Joseph is in, and that's close, very, very close to the head of Saqib Mahmood, and the ball might have clipped something on its way through to Josh De Silva, because Alzari Joseph just celebrated straight away. He went running off towards cover point as though that's it, that's the final wicket, but there was nothing from behind the stumps and nothing from anyone else. So umpire Joel Wilson has just come in from square leg to tell the 2 close infielders on the offside just to calm themselves down a little bit. Vicious bouncer, and actually very well played by Saqib Mahmood. Yeah, just clipped his arm guard.
Clipped his arm guard, yeah. There's a bit of flat flying around here. Shamar Brooks, Kemar Bonner, either side of Bonner's on the leg side. Brooks on the offside, and they've got a lot to say for themselves. So England obviously throughout the series have had quite a bit to say for themselves as well. Ben Stokes the biggest culprit of that.
Over the wicket now to Alzarri Joseph, full, and Sakib Mahmood drives on the up, pings it at Jaden Seals at mid-off, and that is the end of that particular passage of play. It was a hell of a shot from Sakib. Another indication that some of the spice goes out of this pitch once the ball gets a bit older, because I'm not sure any of the top order would have got away with a shot like that in the early exchanges when the ball had a little bit more sheen and hardness to it. Joseph is in again. Short leg slip, men back on the hook, and the ball has gone up in the air. Oh, goodness me. It would have been caught probably by a second slip. Sakib had no idea what was going on there. He tried to fend the ball off towards the leg side, and somehow it ended up going through the slip cordon. He gets up the other end, and it's another run to England.
Better from Alzarri Joseph. This was over the wicket. He's bowled a lot this morning from around the wicket to the right-hander, and the bouncers, because he needs to go, it's really short. Batsmen see it early and they can take evasive action and get out of the way. This time he's gone over the wicket and he can get it into the ribcage of Sakib Mahmood, and that's where it's going to be more dangerous. He's round the wicket again to Jack Leach.
Yeah, switch round. Still plenty of company for Leach. It's another short ball. Leach is on the back foot, plays again that beautiful back foot defensive, textbook back foot defensive, and there is no run.
I think to go on, there's going to be a lot talked about Joe Root's captaincy. In my opinion, he needs to do it himself now. I think for his own good. It's not affecting his game because he's still scoring runs, but I just think for his own mental sanity, it's time to get out there, unfortunately. As much as I really wanted him to carry on, I really wanted him to do it well. And
Joseph in, and again back foot defensive stroke from Leach, picked up at mid-on this time.
And I really wanted him to do well. I wanted him to come back after the Ashes, and you give him a group without Broad and Anderson, put that decision to side and really put his stamp on the group. And there have been positive things on this trip. I know Marcus said last night, don't isolate this for what the trip's been. He says trip, yes, fine, because England have batted quite well on the trip, but what happened yesterday has been happening for a few years now.
Joseph in once more, and Jack Leach takes the bottom hand off the bat in order to just keep his hand as high as he possibly can, defends it again off the back foot. It's the end of the over, 119 for 9. England lead by 26. They have one second innings wicket remaining. The Richards Botham Trophy is on the line, and we think so is the captaincy of Joe Root. I mean, and that's the point, isn't it, really? I listened to what Marcus had to say in his interviews last night, and I suppose that the problem with that is that you come out to a test match series to win it, right? And you get down to the last test match, and it's all on the line, and it's winner take all, and you get yourselves into a position whereby it's mano a mano, and you fold as Roach comes in. Short ball again, and Sakib Mahmood again attempts to play a sort of paddle hook shot, and somehow manages to keep it down enough to get it all the way out to fine leg and over the head of Jason Holder. So that took some skill over his head, and then bouncing before fine leg, and he picks up another single, and I think you probably breathe a bit more of a sigh of relief that Jack Leach is now on strike, because Sakib has looked skittish, to say the least. And so you get down to a point where you've got two teams who are at the bottom of the World Test Match Championship, two teams who are kind of, as you rightly say, sort of lacking a little bit in star quality, particularly in the batting lineup, bowling lineups also, you could say, as well. And then, but when it came down to it, then it was a case of, okay, well, whose will is stronger, whose Roach is running away from us now around the wicket to Jack Leach, and he's full ball. West Indies are appealing. West Indies appeal. Josh De Silva is making the T sign, saying you've got to review this. Joel Wilson's hand stays in his pocket, but we are going to have a review. Jack Leach is shaking his head.
Copy, Joe. Review for caught behind. Leslie to Mark, we have a player review for caught behind. The original decision is not out. I've already checked and established it's a fair delivery. Can you move on to front on, please? Front on coming up. And the ball is very close to the outside edge. I'll need ultra edge to confirm if there's an edge. Just waiting on ultra edge, Joe. Ultra edge coming up. Yeah, there's a spike as the ball is resting next to the bat. I'm ready to go back on field to Joel. Joel, I'm going to ask you to overturn your decision. You can give the batsman
we'll wait for the umpire to go through the protocol, but the facts of the matter are that the West Indies openers have sprinted off the field. The West Indies bowlers and fielders are celebrating right now, hugging one another, high fives. Josh De Silva gets a huge hug from pretty much everyone out there left on the park. Kemar Roach has done the trick, given the ball as second change man this morning, has picked up the 2 wickets from the Darbo end. The first slightly fortunate, you could say, of Chris Wokes, a brilliant catch from Jason Holder at leg slip, and then nothing wrong or fortunate about the second one. Jack Leach, whose defence had been absolutely superb, forced into playing at a delivery on the front foot just outside his off stump that was angling back in from Kemar Roach. It took the faintest of edges. Umpire Wilson's finger stayed in his pocket, but Joshua De Silva was utterly adamant that there'd been a scratch, and DRS proved that is the case. So all in all, as the West Indies leave to great fanfare from the local fans here in Grenada, West Indies will need just 28 runs to win the match and the series and be the first team to get their hands on the Richard Botham Trophy.
Kemar Roach has done it again to the left-hander. He's bowled so well to left-handers in this 3-match series. I think the setup of Lee's right at the very start of the series, the way he angles the ball in, he can move it in both directions. I was surprised that he didn't bowl first up this morning. I know we talked about half an hour before play. Ian Bishop, a colleague of ours on TV, said, who would you go with? And I think you had to go with Myers after what he did yesterday, but I thought you had to go with Kemar Roach. He challenges you on the front foot, inside, outside edge. His ability to move the ball, his skill, not only his skill factor, but his experience as well. And he's came on, picked 2 wickets up at the end there. 2 for 10 off 9.2 overs, Kemar Roach. You had to go with Jaden Seals, 1 for 26, 5 for 18 off 17 overs. 5 for 18, I'll say it again, 17 overs. Kyle Myers. And the one thing that the West Indies did well, far superior than anything that England's been close to doing from a bowling department, was bowl straight, make the batsman play when the ball was at its newest, and then keep the pressure on as and when the day goes on. That, for me, is the difference between these two sides. The bowling unit of the West Indies, even on the flat pitches of Antigua and Barbados, have been able to challenge, make batsmen play. Unfortunately, England haven't, wasted it far too many times. 28 runs is not a lot of runs, and it's a little bit of humiliation for England as they start to get ready to be outside in the heat. English fans that are in here, it's going to be a short session, and I think there'll be a huge amount of question marks on the players when they do walk off this field for the final time, on who actually takes the field the next time England play.
Yeah, but we will have all of the post-mortems, all of the questioning, all of the hand-wringing that always follows up a defeat for England on tour, or indeed at home, and there's been plenty of them of late. To chew over that and the denouement of this Test match and Test match series, I'll hand you back to Matt Pryor and Neil Manthorpe.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark Butcher and Steve Harmison. So, as you said, it will be a short day. 28 runs is the target. It's a pretty hopeless situation for England. But it's like, I don't know whether you ever played chess, Matt. As a youngster, when I played chess, you realise that the game was up, but you still need to go through, keep moving your queen around until eventually you concede. So much to talk about, and in the same breath, there's kind of a feeling that let's just all take a deep breath and go away and reflect on the situation. I don't know where to start. But one thing, you were talking to Mark Nicholas in the build-up about Joe Root and the captaincy and replacing him with a new captain, and we always tend to look within the squad, within the group, and Ben Stokes' name comes forward, and Stuart Broad, I was talking on talkSPORT a little while ago before the day's play started, and I advocated Stuart Broad as an interim measure for the summer, and then, really think through. You're giving me that look. That they're going to want to make that call pretty quickly, I think. Okay. What about somebody completely outside of the current system? A successful young county captain. Do you remember when Chris Cowdrey was appointed as England captain in 1988?
Okay, yeah,
Tom Abel? I don't know. Sam Northeast?
We just throwing names?
I'll tell you, the guy a lot of people respect as a very good county captain is Rory Burns.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But we know with players at this level, you can't captain a team and not perform.
Will Rhodes?
No, Manners.
I'm asking a question. I don't know. I'm not advocating at all.
Look, maybe it's too simplistic a view, but the first thing you have to do is pick the best 11 cricketers for England.
Yeah.
You have to be good enough to play international cricket.
We're in violent agreement on this.
At international level. You can't... I think more the question is, how on earth in England do we have one option as an England captain? How has that...
Exactly. Can the cupboard really be that big?
You can't tell me Joe Root has been kept on by the ECB because he deserved it. He absolutely didn't. He's been kept on because they don't have an alternative option.
It's a desperate situation. I can't think of many worse reasons to stick with a leader.
And going back to your Broad shout, they've got rid of him. So what, they're going to now go, sorry Broad, all is forgiven, you're opening the bowling and your captain, please, because we don't have anyone else.
Well, they did say they didn't get rid of Broad and Anderson.
They were very clever with what they said.
It's a bit like saying to your girlfriend, you're not going to meet my parents, and then a week later, asking her to marry you. That you've already slighted her pretty much in a massive way.
I don't know
and
how
now
well the analogy fits, but I like it.
And now you're asking for a far bigger thing. It doesn't make any sense to go to Broad at this point.
I also don't think, and I'm going to get all the abuse in the world on social media for sticking up for Joe Root and everything, but so be it. The ECB made a call. We're sticking by Joe Root. After the Ashes. I agree with everyone. He should have gone after the Ashes. I don't know how you can lose so badly in Australia. Australia's got the shotgun out. Everyone else is gone. But the captain stayed. That's a massive, massive call. But when they make that call, you're in then. You can't go away, lose this series, and then... Well, look, I wouldn't put it past them, but it would be odd for me.
What about the defenders of Joe Root who say, can we just take a holistic view of this series and remember who was on the front foot in the first two test matches on two very, very flat... Yes, we reverted back to type and the same old disastrous mistakes and batting collapses returned in the third test, but for a while there, for a couple of tests, there were some positive signs, and it was England who were pushing for victory on the fifth day. So although this has been a dreadful test match with some horrible sessions in it, what about those who say, if we look at the tour as a whole, once everybody's taken a deep breath and slept on it 24 hours later and we've all calmed down, there are lots of small positives.
Don't say it. Look, I don't think anything's going to happen in the next 24, 48 hours. I do think there will be some time, because they've got time. Well, to me, when's the next test? June?
June, yeah.
So they've got time. Nothing needs to be decided tomorrow.
Could you give me your list of the small positives?
Welcome to our listeners on talkSPORT. Leach and Mahmood averaging 50 with the bat.
I mean, Leach's batting is probably a positive. I mean, I'll give you that.
Okay, the West Indies require just 28 runs for victory. England have been bowled out for 120. Just for the benefit of those of you who are joining us on talkSPORT, they added 17 runs this morning in 11 overs, with Chris Woakes and Jack Leach, the men, dismissed. Woakes for 19 from 50 balls. He was caught at leg slip brilliantly by Jason Holder, and Jack Leach was caught behind by keeper Joshua De Silva. Kemar Roach, the successful bowler on both occasions, and he finishes with figures of 2 for 10. Kyle Mayers, who had figures of 5 for 9 overnight, finished with 5 for 18. Chris Woakes it will be to bowl the first over, looking for a consolation wicket or two, but nothing, I'm afraid. Pitches, but the Spice Island of Grenada has delivered a pitch with a little bit of pepper in it, and England's batsmen, I'm afraid, have not been up to the task in either innings. They were 114 for 9 in the first innings before being rescued to some degree by a 10th wicket partnership of 90. Woakes in again round the wicket to John Campbell, a left-hander. That's pushed up towards mid-off, where Ben Stokes does the fielding. Well, they recovered, and do you know what? Here's a positive. Jared Kimber was suggesting that I wasn't actually suggesting there were positives. I was suggesting there were people who would say that there have been positives. The fact that England were on the front foot and pushing for victory on the 5th day of the first 2 Test matches before they ended in a draw. Here's Woakes once again, bowls. Campbell tucks it off his hip out towards Dan Lawrence at mid-wicket, and there is no run.
West Indies have the lowest batting average away from home of any team in the last 5 years of Test cricket, and if you looked at their home batting average, they would be the 3rd worst batting average of any team travelling away from home. So they're so bad when they bat at home that they're basically in the same bracket as the teams when they bat away from home. I don't think being in a position where you have the chance to beat them in 2 tests and not doing it.
Clipped away by Campbell, behind square on the leg side, and that's another run, knocked off. Target down to 26.
Is in any way a positive. In the top 45 run scorers of the last decade, West Indies have 1 player in that list. You should be, if you have a chance to win against the West Indies twice, you really should be winning one of those Test matches. I cannot see that as a positive, I'm sorry.
He's just taken your positive and turned it into negative manners. As I said, I wasn't advocating that there were. I just said there were people who will be doing that. That's low full toss, clipped away out to square leg and fielded by Alex Leach. That wasn't a great way to finish the over from Chris Woakes, who's conceded 2 runs. Craig Brathwaite and John Campbell, the 2 openers, have a run apiece. And the West Indies target is just 28 runs. The party has begun at the National Cricket Stadium in Grenada, and the capital, beautiful little town that it is of St George's, will be partying later on this afternoon and this evening to celebrate I won't call it a famous West Indian victory. I can't do that because although it has been a close tussle in the first 2 Test matches, there's been a undeniable lack of great cricket. It hasn't been cricket of the highest quality, but it's been a tussle between 2 teams with limitations, and it is the West Indies who will prevail. 2 slips and a gully as Saqib Mahmood's been given the new ball, and he's up to the crease now. Bowls short, pulled away by Campbell. He's hit that very nicely, man out there on the hook, and it's all the way along the ground though, nicely controlled. And the West Indies pick up another run, move along to 3 without loss. So Matt Pryor's alongside me. I was advocating the possibility of Stuart Broad taking the captaincy reins on an interim basis. Is it fair to say that you have emphatically ruled that possibility out, Matt Pryor?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. That name's being... James Vince he's played at the top level. He knows what is required. Here's Saqib Mahmood. That's good away swinger. Good pace too with the new ball. Although the speedometer says it's just 132 kilometres an hour, it looked a bit skiddier than that. Joe Root it is then. You'd leave it with Joe Root and...
No, hold on. No, I'm not saying I'd leave it with Joe Root. I'm saying that after the ECB made the decision to stick by him, they can't get rid of him now, having lost the series. I don't think. I think that was a big call, and they're saying, right, we're rebuilding the team. There's a longevity in that.
Here's Saqib Mahmood. There's appeal for a leg before wicket. Brathwaite hit it on the pad. It was heading towards leg stump and almost certainly past it. And there's a leg by, 1 more to the total, 4 without loss. So look, as we've said, the next Test match isn't until June.
Sorry, man, they've reviewed that.
Not out.
They didn't do it.
I've already checked the front foot and established it's a fair delivery. Can you move on to front on spin, please?
Clearly the television director wasn't expecting them to review it, was he?
I didn't even see the counts.
Front on coming up, Greg. There doesn't appear to be any bat. I'll need Ultra Edge to confirm that.
They reviewed that on the basis
Ultra Edge coming up now.
And they
under the bat.
Might as well. Please don't tell me that anybody thought that was
no bat
they
involved. Can you move on to ball tracking, please?
Shoulders. Root just had a go.
Ball tracking coming up. Pitching outside off. Impact outside. Thank you. I'm ready to go back on field to Gregory. Gregory, you can stay with your original not out decision. Your on-screen signal now.
The actual impact was outside leg stump, so often maybe hits in front of middle or middle and leg, and is then seen to be going on to miss leg stump. That was actually hit him on the pad outside leg stump. 4 without loss, just 24 required for victory now as Saqib Mahmood is in once again. That's good in swinger to the left-handed Campbell, nudges it up towards mid-on. If I was to push you, Matt, which I am doing, for some consolation positives, I'm not saying there have been any outrageous boxes ticked in emphatic fashion by England during this series, but if I was to ask you whether it's been 100% doom and gloom and everything's been bad, would you have anything to counter that with?
No, I'm in a bad mood with all of this. I don't think this is a time for consolation positives. I really don't. I think this is a time for a very honest debrief of where England cricket is at. And there are no... Again, you can go to the Ashes and you can talk about COVID bubbles and the pressure under the players and everything else, which I completely understand and I get, etc., etc. You don't have those excuses here. This is an average West Indies team.
Saqib Mahmood, Campbell defends, no run.
And again, no disrespect to the West Indies, because I think, you've got to be slightly careful there, but they're 8th in the world. You're in the Caribbean. It's a fantastic place to play cricket. You haven't got 60,000 Australians screaming at you, sledging you. We haven't been able... Look at the basics of the game, the skill sets that are required to win Test matches. Bowlers being able to put the ball in the right area. Okay, they've got the docile wicket. Okay, well, we need a spinner. Batters being able to score big runs.
Saqib Mahmood in again. Short wide cut by Campbell. with a fair degree of disdain and anger. That was a flashing blade, the like of which he is well known in the Caribbean, and it's 4 runs. Really, really powerful strike. It was in the air for a little while, and not a million miles away from Zach Crawley at backward point, but 4 runs. Campbell doubles the total. It moves on to 8 without loss.
Yeah, before this series, he spoke about resets and wanting to learn about the players and giving players the opportunity to lead, and that's good. Now they've learned. What are they going to now do about it? What changes are going to be made? Because there need to be changes. No doubt about it. But we've just been looking at the batting stats, because all we've spoken about is how flat these wickets are.
Here's Chris Wokes in once again. He's full and straight, then clipped away nicely by Craig Brathwaite through mid-wicket. Saqib Mahmood has the chase on from mid-on and overhauls it 10 yards before it reaches the rope. Double figures for the West Indies, 10 without loss.
Flat wickets against an honest West Indian bowling attack. No spinner. Kemar Roach is their leader. He's a good bowler. Root 289 runs, 48. Bairstow 226 runs, 45. The next is Lawrence, averaging 32.
Here's Wokes again. Good delivery. Play and a miss from Craig Brathwaite. He was covering the line, and through it goes to Joshua De Silva.
Stokes 194 runs, 32. Crawley 184 runs, including 100, averaging 30. Lees 126 runs, averaging 21. Folks 96 runs, averaging 19. On flat, docile pitches. You can't say that's just not good enough.
Leg side again from Wokes, as he has been so often, uncharacteristically often in this series, and it's clipped away the easiest of runs for Craig Brathwaite, who moves on to 5, and the West Indies requiring just 28 for victory, a 12 without loss. And yet England scored 500s, didn't they? 2 from Joe Root.
West Indies averages. De Silva's averaging 97.5. That's with a not out, of course. Brathwaite is averaging 81. Nkrumah Bonner's averaging 44.
Wokes again, full and wide, and left alone by Brathwaite with a flourish at the bat. 12 without loss.
And then you drop down to Blackwood is averaging 32, and Mayers is averaging... Mayers has only played the 1 game, hasn't he? It drops off a little bit after that with Holder and Campbell. But again...
But they are reflective of their career averages. Apart, obviously, Nkrumah Bonner is the only one with a career average over 40.
Yeah, and that's probably a little bit higher that it will end for him. It'll probably end in the 30s.
Here's Wokes once again, and this is pushed up towards mid-off, and there's no run. So Jack Leach is the leading wicket taker in the series. Is this very hard to say, but he's alongside Kemar Roach and Jayden Seales. They've all taken 11 wickets. Alzari Joseph taken 10, but the work in the overs that Jack Leach had to go through to pick up those 11 wickets, but he just never looked likely to take 3 or 4 in a session. That's punched off the back foot for a single into the vacant cover region, and they trot through. 3 overs gone. West Indies needing 28 for victory, need another 15. They are 13 without loss. Just 3 overs gone. We're going to finish well before lunch on day 4, and probably to take us over the finish line, you'll be in the company of Mark Nicholas.
Thanks, Manners. On the subject of this series, Craig Brathwaite, much the leading scorer, 327. Joe Root's behind him with 289, even having had a difficult match here. And then Johnny Bairstow, and then Dan Lawrence, and then another West Indian, Joshua De Silva. It's a good stroke, really good stroke by Brathwaite. It'll be worth 4, and it'll leave West Indies just 11 to get. I think what we've seen with West Indies is, you know, the sum of the parts can be greater than the whole, and we talked a bit about before play about how well they've played, and certainly in our following on podcast, when we sort of run a little inquest into what's happened here, we'll discuss West Indies cricket, which should be buoyed, I think, by this victory. Brathwaite looks in good nick. He timed the pants off that, as they say. And now he slaps one through cover off the back foot. 4 more. So a leg stump half volley and a long hob outside off stump from Saqib Mahmood, both punished by Brathwaite. He hasn't had such luxuries to feed upon much in this series. He's had to work very hard for his runs. But these are cracking strokes.
They are fantastic strokes. The balls are there to hit, but you've got to hit them. And Brathwaite does exactly that. Times it beautifully. Full flourish of the bat. West Indies go to 21. But yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot to be said about this West Indian team and how they played their cricket.
Only 7 needed now. We're also live both on talkSPORT and on talkSPORT 2, so it's great to have you all with us. England are going down by some margin here. 10 wickets it'll be, I think. But West Indies have shown that maybe cricket, the long form of cricket anyway, in the Caribbean is not dead after all. Maybe there's life in it. Maybe good leadership both from the very top with actually an Englishman in charge, Johnny Grave is CEO, and then Phil Simmons and Craig Brathwaite with the team. Maybe it's working, not quite the oracle, but it's working reasonably well, as Mahmood bowls quite a wide ball that Brathwaite couldn't help himself from temptation, and it was very wide, and he did well even to sort of crouch and try to reach it. Anyway, he missed it. He's got 14. Campbell's got 6. A very satisfied West Indian team sit on their balcony soaking it up. These moments before a victory, when that victory has become inevitable, are very special for a team, because all the stress of playing in a test match seems to ease out of you, and your body gets softer and easier, and your mind begins to enjoy it a bit, and that keeps very low, and he tries to cut it, does Brathwaite, but he goes under his bat. And the other point is that once your mind's freed up, you can actually enjoy it. So much of the enjoyment of sport is reflected joy after the event. It's very hard during the event to actually get to grips with the fact that this has been fun.
Well, yeah, because more often than not, it's actually just quite painful. The physical exertion, mental exertion, to get to that point.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? The relief that you feel when it's over and you've won it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brathwaite on strike. And this one he does reach, because they've all been quite wide, and he just hits it into the ground and the cover field of Jack Leach. Does the rest, so 21 for no wicket. talkSPORT 2, as the glorious Caribbean shines rather brighter than England's cricket. Sparkling seas, wonderful vistas wherever you turn. Brathwaite on 14, and West Indies now need 7 to win the test match and of course take the series. England possibly marginally ahead in the previous 2 games. I'd say they were in Barbados. I'd say in Antigua maybe West Indies hung on a little more securely. I think in Antigua they really did feel like there was a chance. In Barbados they really did feel like there was a chance of England winning. Antigua it felt more a distant hope. Wokes round the wicket now at Campbell, and that slides down the leg side. It catches the pad, and Folkes throws himself and palms it away, so it's only a single. 6 needed. John Campbell, there's a talented man. We talked at length to Michael Atherton yesterday about him, a guy who Jared Kimber told us has an awful habit of getting out between 20 and 49. And that's exactly what he did in the first innings here, in the first innings in Antigua, in the second innings in Antigua. Sadly, in Barbados, he didn't reach 20 in either innings, but he can time a cricket ball beautifully. Brathwaite drives and uses his wrist to drive. What an unusual stroke, and what a good stroke. 4 runs through wide mid-off. Just a little flick of the wrist on the front foot to control the stroke. And he's racing West Indies to victory. 1 to tie the scores, 2 to win it.
All but over. Wokes with another full delivery. Yeah, it was a bit of an awkward shot. Cover drive that wasn't quite there, but used these wrists, used these hands, timed it beautifully. He's obviously a fantastic touch. That's what he said.
He gave it a look afterwards to just say, oh, I like that. He kind of rolled his wrists on it, didn't he? Like a tennis forehand.
Yeah.
Down the line, a top spinner. That was down the line, all right. Beautifully placed. He waits now for Chris Wokes. Bangs it into the pitch, and he goes back and pushes it out to wide mid-off, where the fielding is safely done by Ben Stokes, who wings it to Ben Folkes. And the crowd are loving this. More locals have come in the last sort of 20 minutes, half an hour, and they're beginning to wave their flags, and Zula's going, play the music at the steel pan, and just turn it into an event that they can all say they were a part of. The day we beat England here at St George's. Here's Wokes again. Oh, that's a punch drive that Stokes does well to stop. Excellent timing. He held his position, didn't follow through with that bat. He just punched it and didn't quite find the gap. The very satisfied coach, Phil Simmons, who's sitting at the back of the West Indies viewing area, and he's been in a long career in the game. Phil Simmons played with some of the greats, didn't quite achieve the mighty heights himself, but he was a very dangerous ball striker and a sneaky quick medium pacer, if that makes sense. He hit the pitch so hard. Good man in cricket, really good man. Great supporter of charities, terrific guy. Wokes now running in. And a single for Brathwaite. That brings the scores level. Do they run back for two? They do. Brathwaite lifts his right arm to the sky and waves his bat at his dressing room and at the home supporters. To Silva there, punches the air on that balcony. Hips move in this direction and that in the crowd as the steel pan pounds it out. So too the master of the disco. The flags are waved now because West Indies have recorded a fine victory here in Grenada. They've beaten England by 10 wickets and they've taken the series by 1-0. The West Indies captain and probably the man of the series, Craig Brathwaite, is the man who hit the winning runs, and now he shakes the hand of all the England players who are of course disconsolate. On the faces of 11 men in white is despair. On the faces of everybody else from the Caribbean is joy.
Yep, and what is a very, very sad and bleak day for England, it has to be said, is a very, very joyous and a happy day for West Indies. Craig Brathwaite, their captain, just watching their balcony, the joy, jumping, hugging, backslapping, and it's very, very well deserved. You look back to the first two test matches, there were times where England got on top. The West Indies had to be resilient, they had to fight hard, they had to bat long times, long periods, they had to be disciplined with the ball, and where their moment came in the third test and final test, they took it, they grabbed it, and here they are.
I've just seen Kyle Mayers coming down the steps. I'm thinking if you're adjudicating the man of the match, his match figures are 7 for 31 on a flat deck. Having said that, it wasn't always a flat deck, and Josh De Silva got a fantastic unbeaten 100. Who's your MOM?
For me, it's the De Silva innings was the game that put West Indies in the strong position to go ahead and win it. Mayers, of course, has had a phenomenal game, and figures like that would normally, I'd imagine, put him in the box seat for the Man of Match award, but De Silva for me. Yeah,
he transcended the pitch, the conditions, and indeed everybody else's performance. Nobody else passed 50, so I'm with you completely on that. I think he has to get that award. It's been a splendid performance by him, and I think he is a great find and a thoroughly good human being, actually. I think in his attitude, you sense that from his interviews. Phil Simmons is now down the steps shaking the hands of all the England players. And he does so with a really genuine smile and a warmth of the handshake and a pat on the back of each of those England players. He knows that this game doesn't always go your way, and that's been the case with West Indies cricket at Test match level for a while now. They've underperformed, at least with the history behind them. They've underperformed. De Silva's now coming back with stumps. I think he's been over to the groundsman hut and grabbed them all, and he's going to hand them out.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he hands them out. He's been greedy, otherwise he's taken 4. Usually just take the 1, but no, he's going to hand them out to his teammates.
Seals has got one. Let's see. And yes, he's saved one for Carl Mayers. Well done. So Mayers, the Silva, Seals, and I think the other one might have been Campbell. I'm not absolutely sure, but it was Bonner apparently, and Kumar Bonner. This really is fantastic. I think Seals and De Silva and Bonner are great mates. I get that impression. Seen a lot of them together, enjoying their lives. Anyway, it really is a tremendous performance, this, by West Indies. Matt, actually, Matt, just hang on a second, because I'm just going to ask Jared, who knows the Caribbean so well, has worked out there in the CPL. You know, a lot of people in the Caribbean have written off the longer form of the game, thinking that actually, if you look 20 years down the track, you might find West Indies don't play the long form at all, and they become a dedicated short form nation. But days and performances like these will at least lift spirits and maybe gain impetus.
I think that when there was a feeling when Craig Brathwaite and Jason Holder came into the side, that you had two people who believed in the history of West Indian cricket. And even in Holder's case, I think he had an IPL contract when he was very young. They were thinking, he was talking about it as someone who was saying, look, I love this form of the cricket. I love what West Indies have done. It actually means something to me to go out there and do something that my heroes had done before. And he's talked about that, you know, the heroes, Bayesian heroes and the West Indian heroes before. This is huge. This is also their first win, Mark, since the last win against England. They haven't been a successful side. For them to beat England is a very, very big thing for them. And listen to the crowd. As the series got, as West Indies plays better in this series, we saw more West Indian fans come out. That's what it's about. The West Indian fans are saying, we still love our team, but they're not winning. We're waiting for them to win. Wins like this are so important, I think.
Matt, there's a few cricketers there for them to develop. I think that, I reckon in Campbell, at the top of the order, they're going to have to do something about his concentration, but I think he can really play. I don't know where Shai Hope is these days. Shai Hope, I should say. Tell us about him. I'm surprised he hasn't been a part of this.
I think he averaged about 15 or 20 over a couple of year period after destroying England in Headingley a couple of years ago. We still know how talented he is. He's got beautiful timing, incredible balance at the crease. Nkrumah Bonner sort of came from nowhere. Again, very, very good patience. Him and Craig Brathwaite together, very hard to get past. We've seen with De Silva, there's certainly talent there. Their two best probably batting prospects are Nicholas Pooran and Shimron Hetmeyer, who are not in this setup at the moment. So there's definitely talent.
Not chosen?
Hetmeyer wasn't chosen because of fitness concerns. He's not been in great shape. Pooran will come into this team. He's told me on a couple of occasions he's desperate to play Test cricket, and I believe him from the look in his eyes.
So he's just not selected?
He's played 5 first-class games in his career because he had a falling out with West Indies cricket when he was quite young, and then recently he captained West Indies A, so they're bringing him back in slowly. He's only 26, but they can improve this team. Shannon Gabriel didn't play in this team either. Ask Matt what it's like to face Shannon Gabriel. He's an absolute monster of a bowler. He's been a great bowler for them over the last 5 years as well. So this is not a full-strength team of theirs by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, isn't that good news, Matt, to hear that West Indies cricket's really got something going?
Yeah, it is. It's so important. It's important for the game. I think the other thing that's great to see actually is the crowds the last couple of days in Grenada. You know, England, we always talk about, we have the best supporters in the world. The Barmy Army follow England around everywhere, every corner of the earth, wherever they go. But to see local support in the West Indies, steel drums going, it's fantastic, because it is so important that, you know, West Indian cricket not just survives but excels. and long may it continue. As I say, another name I'd add to that list as well is Jayden Seales.
Oh, yeah.
He's been fantastic, and you know, how old is he? 20 years old. 20 years old, and he's run in big, hard, didn't step back from a battle, got stuck in, but his skills were great wrist position, swung the ball nicely, looked like he had good control for such a young man. So I'd certainly add him to the list of talent.
As the West Indies walk round the ground with a lap of honour and one well earned, I have to say there's a report on a conversation that television is showing between Danny, the media manager, and Joe Root, now joined by Paul Collingwood. And those conversations are going through the likely questions from the media and ways to go with answers that don't necessarily bring too much trauma to the event, but of course we kind of know that what's going to be directed at Root here. I also don't think this is putting my foot in it really, but I don't think that's a conversation with a man who's about to stand down. That would be my feeling, but maybe you don't agree, Jared.
That's not how I read it. Okay. I read it that Danny was preparing Joe for something. Now, it could just be what you said, but it could also be that Joe was saying to Danny, I'd like to leave now. But that's just reading it. It just looked like the way that Danny was, trying to make him relaxed and everything. I'm not sure that's what I would expect to see of a captain in this position.
He wouldn't be doing that now. He would have decided overnight. He wouldn't, he would have told them. He would have made a plan with them this morning or last night.
It's very possible. If that's the case, why are they having such a big conversation now? I don't know.
Right. Good question.
I would be shocked. Well, I think the reason they're having such a lengthy conversation is because this is a bad blow. This is a really significant blow for English cricket, for England, and for Joe Root, the captain, and for the whole team. And he is going to come under fire. There's no doubt about that, and I think he is well aware of it, and that's what he wants to prepare for. I would be shocked if Joe Root announced if he had made that call, if he announced it today, or even if he had made that call in the last evening. I think there is time. I think he would probably want to get home, have a conversation with his bubble, whatever you want to call it, family, close friends, agent, whoever it is that he relies on for support and honest feedback, and then he would make that call from there. So I'd be shocked if he announced anything today, if he was going to.
I'm completely with you from a tactical point of view, or from the way that he does things. I'd be surprised. That particular conversation, though, looked a little bit beyond. You're going to go out there and they're going to ask you this, and this, and this. But look, Danny Rubin is. I worked with almost all the press officers in the world. He is by far one of the best press officers I've ever dealt with in cricket, and he'll be helping Joe through this. They've known each other for a long time. Danny's obviously from Yorkshire as well. And everything now over the next 2 weeks for Joe Root it's going to be quite intense, from the press conference in a couple of minutes all the way through to any decision he makes.
Go one further, probably all the way till June.
Yeah, fair point.
Test matches. There'll be question marks if he remains as captain, of course. He will, if he remains as captain, he will, of course, come under huge scrutiny. And the only way to overcome that is by winning. And of course, England's next test match is in June. It's a long way away, which is another reason why I'm not sure Joe would make a call so immediately.
You're right about Danny Rubin, by the way. He's the best press officer that I've come across in a frightening long time of doing this job. It really is. Craig Brathwaite finishes with 341 runs, and Joe Root with 289. They're comfortably the top two in the series. And Brathwaite deserves a lot of credit. He's a very understated leader of West Indian cricketers, almost by definition, are quite hyper. There's a lot of energy in a West Indian cricketer, and the captaincy, that one of the things Clive Lloyd did so well was he kept a sort of cool head, didn't he, above the storm.
It's interesting when you look back. Darren Sammy was their big captain for a while. Darren Sammy's basically a politician. Jason Holder was their big captain after that. Again, another politician. Kieran Pollard's their white ball captain, a very emotional, passionate person, very, very intense. Brathwaite isn't really like any of those other three guys. He's a lot more relaxed. He's known from the age of 13 that basically all he wanted to do is knock the ball around the corner for one run. Very organised with his play. An old soul, I suppose, is maybe a way of putting it. I don't think he was ever really thought of as captaincy material because he's Bayesian and Jason Holder's of a similar age to him. So he's almost seen as a perfect vice captain. He's taken over the job because Holder struggled. I think he might be an ideal leader for them because he knows exactly what he wants to get out of cricket.
Just works with the West Indian temperament so well. I just like the look of the way he's handled some of the situations here. He looks to have his bowlers nicely in sync. They seem to understand him and vice versa. He's not histrionic. No, he's good. Great. We're watching all sorts of highlights now, and we're waiting for the interviews. That's what it's all about. The two captains, man of the series, I suppose, certainly man of the match. And it'll be very interesting to hear from Brathwaite and from Root and from whoever they choose. I would have thought Brathwaite would be man of the series and De Silva would be man of the match, and in this case Kyle Mayers would get an honourable mention, but he did get 7 for 31 in the game. They're showing us the pictures of that emotional moment when De Silva went to 100, dipped his head, hands on knees, and just couldn't really believe it, and suddenly burst into tears. It was just too much. And we see a lot of extravagant emotional responses to things in modern sport, to moments that don't necessarily warrant such extreme celebration. But that was a perfect example of somebody whose climb to the summit had been, full of graft, and in the end the graft paid off. Wonderful to watch. West Indies winning by 10 wickets. If you're just joining us, I think the presentation ceremony is about to happen, so I'll hold the fort for a minute and hear what the producer has to say. Yep, we're going to go across and join Ian Bishop.
Test match here in Grenada. Thank you so much as we come to the end of match and end of series, third test of the Apex Test Series presentation. First of all, we'd like to thank the official sponsors of the series who have made this possible. Apex, the title sponsor, Fan Craze, Betway, CG Insurance, MasterCard, Blue Waters, and of course the Grenada Tourism Authority. A couple of awards to be presented first of all, and that will be the Apex Player of the Match award, who will be presented with his memento by Mr. Will Chignell, Apex ESG Chief Commercial Officer, to Joshua De Silva for his maiden Test Match 100. Mr. Chignell. Josh, congratulations. It's been 24 hours almost since we spoke yesterday. Have the emotions settled and the mind?
Not at all. It's still there, 100%. I dreamt of this, I don't know how long, ever since I started my career. I want to get one of these, and hopefully it's not the last one. Hopefully there's a lot more to come and a lot more hundreds to come as well.
As you think back to the way you played, just rehash for me once again what your mindset was batting with those gentlemen at the back end.
Trust them as much as I can. That's what I did, and all credit goes to them. They sticked with me all the way till the end, and Jaden did a fantastic job. Rochi, Alzari, all of them, I can't thank them enough. They are why I have this. It's because of them. So I just did my part and tried my best.
I won't ask you about your behind the stumps commentary, because that has been a thing to behold. But in terms of glove work and keeping, was it challenging keeping on the surface or not?
It was quite challenging. I do hold myself to quite high standards, so I would give myself a poor glove work in this series. I had a lot of buys, which not like me, so for me, definitely I would improve on that. But all in all, I think I had a decent series, but it was definitely a bit tough on this wicket.
Yeah, let's stay with the positive. And going forward, what goals have you set for yourself in terms of your improvement in your own personal game?
Definitely, it's Test cricket. Still need to get fitter, could always do better, could always improve in all aspects of the game. It's only just started, one of many hopefully, and I've got a taste, so hopefully it just keeps coming.
Fantastic to see your performance across this series. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Josh De Silva, the Apex Player of the Match. Let me now ask the English captain Joe Root to come forward. Is Joe around anywhere? Joe? All right. I'm not sure that he's here yet, so we'll move on to the Player of the Series award, and that goes to the West Indies captain Joe Root, who is not here. Craig Brathwaite will come up as the leader of this West Indies team, and he will be presented with his trophy by Mr. Chignell, the Apex ESG Chief Commercial Officer. Craig, 341 runs in the series. How do you feel about that achievement?
Well, I feel fantastic, and feel even better that the team has won. Obviously want to thank all the fans that came out here to the Grenada Stadium, but very, very pleasing.
What sort of technical modifications, if any, have you made coming into this, or adjustments?
Well, the main thing I was working on was my balance, and a lot of top hand work, and I've been pushing at this for like 2 years now, so now seeing some rewards from it, to be honest.
As you look around your team and the contributions of certain batsmen here, your thoughts?
I mean, it's been remarkable. I think from Bonner, leading the way, Antigua and Jason, coming to Barbados, we had Blackwood, we had Kimura playing a fighting knot with a finger that was hurting. Jaden and De Silva, did yesterday. It's a total team effort. I mean, from Alzari yesterday evening, asking him to bowl some short balls, and putting in the effort. It's a total team effort. I must commend all 13 of the guys.
Let's not go too deeply into it. We'll get you back up here because England's captain has made his way here. So thank you for the moment, Craig Brathwaite, the Apex Player of the Series. Joe, not the result you wanted, I'm sure. How do you feel about the way things have gone?
It's been a frustrating test match because for the first two games we played so much good stuff. And we showed a lot of fight in that first innings to get ourselves in a position where we're still in the game. And yesterday was a really frustrating day. It was an important day in the series, and we just didn't manage it as well as we could have, and that we've shown that we can do in the first two games. So after a difficult winter, we showed a lot of promise in the first two games, and I think we have made some strides forward. But it is frustrating to here now. But credit to the West Indies, they played some brilliant cricket yesterday. An important day's cricket, they stood up and really took the series from us.
What were the challenges in calibrating, particularly the batting coming off of two, I suppose, batter-friendly pitches onto this one?
I just don't think we quite read the surface as well as we could have individually. I think, as I say, we found ourselves in a similar situation in the first test match, first innings, stood up to it really well, and we just didn't get to grips with it out here this week. And like I say, we have made some big strides in that department, but there's still a lot of learning that needs to be done, and that's not going to happen overnight. We're going to have to keep working hard, keep applying ourselves, and keep the attitude that we've had throughout the whole trip. I think that's been as good as I've seen it, and if we keep applying ourselves like that, we will start seeing improvement. And the most important thing is that we start making those improvements and those good strides into performances and wins. So yes, it's frustrating, but there's still some good things to be taken away from this.
Identify one or two of those plus points for me.
Well, I think one of the shining lights really is seeing how Jack Leach has performed throughout this series. I think he's been exceptional. A couple of the young batters coming in and showing a huge amount of promise as well. Guys like Dan Lawrence playing the way he has throughout this series. Two young debutants coming in, showing a lot of encouraging signs at the start of their journey, which is very exciting. And as well having to do a lot of the work on some very unresponsive wickets too. So I think we have learned a lot as a group and about where we're currently at as a team and where we need to keep improving. And the most important thing is that we keep that attitude that we've had. I think that's been exceptional. I think our skills and decision making let us down yesterday slightly. But if we keep approaching things as we have done, then it won't be long until we turn those into performances.
Finally, I know the emotions haven't settled. You said coming out here that you wanted to lead this team. Do you still feel that strong urge that you have what it takes to do it?
Yeah, I think I've made it quite clear about how I feel about this team. I'm very passionate. I feel like I've got the support of the guys behind me to take the team forward, and that's not changed. That's not changed at all.
Joe, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for coming out here.
Cheers.
And all the best in the future.
Thank you. And can I also say thank you to all of our travelling support, as always. It's been great to have you here. We're so lucky to get the support that we do. And congratulations to the West Indies. Well played.
Thank you very much. To England's captain, Joe Root. I'd now like to get the West Indies captain, Craig Brathwaite, back up here, and he will receive the presentation of the Richards Botham Trophy from Mr. Ricky Scarrett, the president of Cricket West Indies. Also Dwayne Gill, the president of the Grenada Cricket Association and director of Cricket West Indies, here as well. Gentlemen, the honours. Congratulations to the West Indies team led by Craig Brathwaite. The newly minted, newly named Richards Botham Trophy. Right, let's get into all the surrounding things now in terms of the team itself and what inspired them to do as well as they did.
I think we had a camp, before the series, and, we sat down and, we decided this is one of our best series at home, and we got to fight hard. From the camp, we put in a lot of work, 4 or 5 hours a day, 6 days in a week. I mean, from there it started, and it just carried through every game, someone else raising their hand and doing the job, whether it's in the field, with the ball or with the bat or spending time. The effort was remarkable.
You've had some guys like Jaden Seals, Alzari Joseph, Joshua De Silva. What's their growth been like?
Well, obviously they learn on the job, but, to see how Joshua and Jaden with a bat, yesterday, it's like they were playing for a long period. I think these are guys that are willing to learn, and that's one thing. Alzari as well, he's been even better, in this game in terms of economy rate, and it's something he's been working at, and the effort is there, but when you have guys like Kemar Roach and Jason Holder, leading the way, is great examples to follow.
What's next for this team? What's the drive? What's the desire? What's the goal?
I think we learned a lot from this series. Different periods where we saw we could do it, I will always use yesterday. It was really a remarkable day for us, and to show the fight, and the attitude we had from the get-go, from the warm-up, I think it's key to carry that forward. Obviously, next test series potentially is in June, and it's just to keep building. We build a lot of blocks, in this series, and we got to continue. We can't take it for granted. It's easy, to be happy with a series win and relax. But I don't think we can relax. We got to go back, to our respective territories, put in some work. We have some first-class games, in May before the next test series. So guys got to stay hungry. I think staying hungry is really the key.
Have you enjoyed the Grenada?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The supporters here have been amazing. I just want to thank them on behalf of, the West Indies team. They came out all 4 days, and, they supported us. And it was, amazing ground it is. Obviously, the pitch offered, something, and glad we came out, on top. Obviously, kudos, to Joe and England. A remarkable series. The first 2 games going to day 5. I think that was a top series.
Congratulations. I'll send you over to join your teammates. Thank you very much to Cricket West Indies President. Congratulations to you, Craig, and to your team.
Okay, so now we know Joe Root wants to continue, which isn't what Mike Pryor had expected. I think probably it's not what any of us had expected, given what we saw yesterday. His emotion seemed to have overcome him yesterday. Worth reminding everybody, this is the first West Indies win at home since they beat England 2-1 in 2018-19, and England have only still won the single series in the Caribbean since 1967-8, when they won 3-0 in 2003-4. We focused actually on that with Steve Harmison the other day. Matt, that's whichever way you look at it, it's nice that the England captain still has the strength and desire, whether you agree with it or not, to come off the back of these incredibly difficult past few days and talk intelligently and feel that he has the passion and the desire to continue. That's no bad thing in itself.
Yeah, definitely, and he's quashed any of us talking more about does he want to carry on doing it. He's just told us he does, which is good. I'm sure the conversation will continue, of course, whether he is the right man and what the ECB will do, but Joe certainly wants the job.
Well, he's changed the conversation, though, from what does he want to do to, whether he should be there, which is an external conversation now. He said, I'm going to do this until the job is taken away from me. That's way better than the speculation and us trying to read his body language and, is his hand, his hands are on his face for this reason or that reason. So at the very least, I think that's quite an important one.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to pick up. Okay. Guys, thank you very much. We're going to go to the following on podcast in just a moment, but it's been great to have you alongside us. We hope that you've enjoyed our coverage, everybody at home. Do join into these podcasts. We do summaries of the day, and of course today we'll be doing an inquest into what's gone on, because it's been an extremely difficult thing to deal with. For the moment, from all of us, it's bye-bye. England have been beaten in Grenada, and by 10 wickets. Craig Brathwaite is the victorious captain, and Joe Root is a captain who says he really does want to continue in the job. He still believes he's the right man to take this team forward. Remember 2009, and England were bowled out for 51 in Jamaica? Well, that led to another red ball reset. Within 18 months, England had won the Ashes down under for the first time in a generation. So what needs to happen for England to pull that off again? Is it a change at the top, a change of captain, a change in the coaches, a change in the county game? How do England move forward? This is Following On in partnership with the ECB. Got Jared and Matt and Neil with us, and we're now going to home in on what we've just heard. First of all, Matt, Joe Root wants to continue.
Yeah, made that very clear. I thought it was going to be I need to get home, have a conversation with my with my wife and my manager and everyone else, and I don't want to make any decisions now, let the dust settle type answer. But no, that wasn't the case. He is very much up for it. He feels he's still got the support of the dressing room, which I know will be very important to him, and he wants to be the man.
Jared, you can look at things objectively for us, because though you spend a lot of time working with talkSPORT, you're Australian, you work all around the world. What's your view of Root's position, and indeed, what do you think the rest of the world will make of it?
I think the rest of the world's already wondering why he's still in the job, based on what's going on in this cycle of the World Test Championship, if nothing else. Look, there's a lot of people, a lot of the younger audience coming through into cricket don't think the captain makes as much of a imprint on the team as maybe the older generation of cricket fans do. So there's a big part of them who will be saying it won't matter. If you bring Stokes in, there's no magic cure. He's not going to be able to make these players particularly that much better, although we know he can get little improvements and maybe the system can be changed. But I think the global view of Joe Root at the moment is surely England have to move on. Watching him with his hands over his face at that run out yesterday just didn't look like a man who has a vision for how to get the England team to the level it needs to be.
Well, I don't think that Stokes is the answer, personally, because I think it's too difficult to turn to Ben Stokes after the year he had last year. When you've had mental health issues and a bad injury, and you're not in great nick yourself, that's no time to suddenly be given the extra burden of captaincy. So I don't see Stokes as an answer to Root. I do see Root continuing as an option. I'm not sure it's helped. I'm not sure that down the track we'll review it and think that it's helped his play, because I really think the burden must be beginning to weigh on him now, though he's made 200s in this series in his defence. I think, as always, no one's indispensable. There are probably other options out there, and we haven't fully discussed them, and we will do so, but I don't think Stokes is the guy.
I'm with you. During the Ashes, I kept saying, I don't think Stokes is going to have the kind of impact that everyone thinks. The run through brick walls thing is great, and he might get a slight bump when he takes over because he's a different kind of person. This is a systemic problem. It's not a problem about just the 11 players are out on the field. There's a big problem in English cricket, and I don't think Stokes is going to be able to fix that. On top of that, his body is falling apart, and he's just had mental health, concerns. I just think it's so much to ask of him to throw him in, and he'll say yes, of course. We've seen him bowling with one leg in this series until he can barely move. We know that he'll take the job. But is that the best move for English cricket? I'm with you, Mark. I don't believe so.
Okay, I'm going to ask Neil in just a second what he would think from afar. I'll just say that we also should discuss the structure, because my view is that county cricket isn't providing the best possible tier up to first-class cricket at the moment, up to test match cricket at the moment, and we need to improve our first-class cricket, I think. But I'll just come to Neil, if I may, for another objective view. Neil, though English, works in South Africa and has lived there for many, many years, is a leading broadcaster and writer out there. What would be another objective take on Joe Root?
Sometimes things come to an end, don't they, Mark, as much as you don't want them to, and there's such a massive amount of goodwill still for Joe Root. He still wants to do the job, but I just think that it's reached that point now where a change is inevitable, and it was really sad for me to see how defensive and negative England were on the third morning. You know, they had the West Indian wicketkeeper who was starting afresh, and England were doing everything they could, it seemed, to be trying to play him into form. I mean, I just think Joe Root had 5 men on the boundary almost from the very first ball of the day, and Joshua De Silva went on to score 100. England were handing the initiative to the West Indies, who were 8 down, remember, with a lead of just 28. And for me, it was just a sign that Root was out of ideas and that some fresh spark was required.
Okay. I don't think it's inevitable at all, so we'll agree to differ there. In fact, I think the opposite. I think it's inevitable he'll continue, because I think that Andrew Strauss, who presently is Director of Cricket, has backed him. And the problem that Strauss has now is that he has to appoint a full-time Director of Cricket. He'll do that with Tom Harrison, who's the CEO. Now, the only way I can see Root not retaining his job is if the new Director of Cricket or the new chairman of the board decide that Root isn't their man, and collectively they then say we need to move on from Joe Root. Other than that, I think the Strauss backing is enough to keep him in the job.
Fully agree with everything you've said there. You can't have the conversation after the Ashes that England have had and say we're backing this man as our captain, and then after one series with a new team, having left 2 of your best players ever at home, go out, actually you're not our man anymore. I don't see how that works. So Root standing down was going to be the only way that he is not captain going forward.
And it's a pity we're talking like this, because he is one of the... I mean, he's much loved. I'd go so far as to say that. He's certainly greatly admired. He's much loved for his honesty, for his purity as a cricketer, for his obvious... psyche that's steeped in the game. He's a really special guy, so it's horrible to keep talking like this, but the problem is he's making the decision to stay in the job. He's been backed, so therefore we have to analyse what we think. Who are the options? There were mentions of Stokes and Broad. You've said you don't think Broad is the right guy. We don't think that Stokes is right ready for that now. I do think that James Vince is a plenty good enough cricketer. I think he's probably the 3rd equal best batsman in the country, actually, but the trouble is, a bit like Crawley, he's had a few opportunities, and when they've come, he's got out the same way, nicking the ball outside off stump. If him and Crawley could just find the discipline to leave the ball alone outside off stump when it's fed to him as if it's a piece of bait, they're plenty good enough players, those guys. Root's a very good captain. Vince is a very good captain, and thought so by Mahela Jayawardena. Albeit leading the Southern Brave in the 100, he thought Vince was the best captain he'd worked with, which I think that's an interesting comment from Joe Wardner. But clearly that isn't captaining England in a test match. And whether James Vince is the sort of guy who wants the spotlight, I mean, you're pretty exposed. You know, you're stripped back to the bone as a man when you're given the England captaincy, and you better be ready for that. Hey, Matt.
Yeah, of course, and it is a big step, and as you've said, we will go on to how big the step is from county cricket to Test cricket. But the level of resilience that an England captain or any captain of their country needs is quite incredible. And Joe Root is having to go through that right now.
Yeah, another name that's been bandied around from the county circuit, but he hasn't had the amount of cricket at Test match level that Vince has had, or played the innings. I mean, Vince has played some innings that tell you he easily has the class to play at Test match level. But another name that's been bandied around as a leader of men is Sam Billings.
Okay. No, I'm not arguing. I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking how, because again, for me, I'm a big believer that you have to get in the playing 11 on talent, ability, and most importantly, performance. First and foremost, you have to be able to go there and score runs, perform. You look at the pressure that Joe Root is under right now. He's averaged 50 in Test cricket. Imagine if he was averaging 30 in Test cricket. It'd be, you know what I mean? There'd be people calling for his head even more so, and his place. So we've just spoken about how resilient you need to be as a captain. You can't be, even someone like Owen Morgan, who is, ice runs through his veins. Even when he's not been in good form, he's found it really, really difficult. So someone needs to be picked with the ability and performance behind them first.
Well, I've listed my team, and Vince is in it, Billings isn't in it, so there you go. We might come to that in a minute. Let's get on to the structure, because you put your thumbs up when I said we need a better structure of first-class cricket, or we certainly need a better standard of first-class cricket.
We absolutely need a better standard of first-class cricket. No doubt about it. And the gap between Test cricket and first-class or county championship cricket is always going to be big. There's no getting away from that. But right now, it is monumental. What the conditions players are playing in. I'm not blaming the individuals and the players. They're playing the game that is in front of them. They're playing on the surfaces that are prepared for them. They're playing under the format and point system that is decided by other people. When all the points are on wins and you turn up and play on cabbage patches, how are we teaching young batsmen to score big hundreds? You're not. Average 30 in a season, and it's like brilliant, fantastic. As long as we win the game. That's ridiculous. County cricket, first-class cricket, is there to prepare young players as best as possible so that when they walk out at the Gabba, they have got the technique and the performances behind them that gives them a chance.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? So county cricket isn't there for a competitive structure between 18 teams that want to play each other and win trophies and justify their existence and make money to exist as a separate entity.
But they don't do that. They rely on the ECB money, and that trade-off is please provide England cricketers.
Okay, but when county cricket was invented a long time ago, it was for people to play cricket against each other, and at the highest level beneath international level. So you're saying that has turned now because ECB are providing all the money through the television deal. It's a complicated argument.
No,
and it's what the counties will fight till the day they drop. That it is not necessarily their sole role to provide an England player.
It's not their sole role to provide an England player, but it is their sole role to we as cricket lovers, and certainly the ECB as people responsible for cricket in this country, need first class and county championship cricket to be as strong as it possibly can be. As you said, a long time ago, cricket has changed a huge amount. And a long time ago, you had two fantastic overseas players in every single team. You had the quick West Indians flying over. The standard and quality of championship cricket a long time ago was fantastic. The names you would have rolling out for Surrey and Warwickshire and Sussex and all the rest. You don't have that now. The quality is not there.
No. And before two, you had three. I mean, Hampshire had Barry Richards, Gordon Greenwich and Andy Roberts in the same team. Sussex had Imran Khan, Garth Larue and Javed Miandad in the same team.
And look, I can only speak from my own experience. When I was first signed on the staff at Sussex, I had Mushtaq Ahmed, Murray Goodwin, Rana Naved. These guys helped me as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old. Mushy came and grabbed me. He goes, who's the wicket keeper? Oh, it's Matt over there. Came and grabbed me. He goes, right, come we're going to the nets, and he just bowled at me and tried to do me with his googly, and he did, of course, every single time. But we didn't leave until I could pick him. That was him. He came and grabbed me. Now, how good was that for my development as a cricketer?
When you think of county cricket, Mark, you're a historian, you know this, that basically until World War II, county cricket was basically stronger than Test cricket, outside of perhaps Australia and the England teams, but certainly with the other nations. What it has become is far weaker as other teams have got better and they've happened to grow. And I think if you want an example of what you can do by restructuring your first-class system, have a look at what New Zealand did. They had very similar pitches to England. They were really struggling as a team. And what did they do? They went, okay, let's make our pitches more like Test pitches. Let's make them flat. Let's help fast bowlers and spinners, and let's make sure our batters can bat long time. Have a look at what New Zealand do in Test cricket right now. None of that's by accident. It's not because Kane Williamson's a good bloke and they've had a couple of good coaches and Baz McCullum jumps over the boundary. It was because the whole of New Zealand cricket came together and said, what we are going to do is change the way that we play cricket. And they could do that because their first-class teams weren't as strong as county teams.
Okay, well, we won't dwell on this, but the fact is that English cricket has to come together. The ECB, the counties and the recreational game have to work as one, and that going forward is perhaps more important in the governance review than anything else. Okay, we're going to head over to the Caribbean because Steve Harmison is now with Joe Root.
Joe, first 2 test matches, that must be incredibly difficult after what you produced in the first 2 test matches. Can you put your finger on why and what's happened this week?
It's hard to, really, because I'd say we've played so much good cricket, we've done so many good things, we've taken huge steps forward in a number of different areas, and yesterday we've gone toe-to-toe for 3.5 weeks, and we just didn't stand up to an important day of Test cricket, and it's hard to take because it feels like the majority of the time we've played the most of the cricket, and we've been driving we drove the first 2 test matches, pushed hard for 2 wins, and we're standing now having lost the series, which is for a relatively inexperienced group quite difficult to take, but it's something that we have to learn from, and it just shows you how hard Test cricket can be sometimes, how brutal it can be.
And you mentioned how hard Test cricket can be. Is it as simple as the West Indies weren't always the best side, but they were the best side in the key moments?
Well, they certainly were in the key moment of this test match, and credit to them. They had a chance and they took it. And I say it's been very hard fought. They played some good stuff alongside us, and it's been a brilliant series to play in. But it is very frustrating standing here and it's not managing to find a way yesterday, which as I say, after so many good things till that point is a frustration.
There's a lot of talk before it came out about a new start, a new cycle. You mentioned about good things have happened. What can you go home and hang your hat on and say, well, that was positive for the time we've been out here?
Well, I think we've learned a huge amount about the group. I think it's quite evident for a lot of people to see the attitude out there is as good as I've ever seen of this test team. I think you look at the way Jack Leach has bowled throughout this series, it's been excellent. A couple of the young lads starting to stand up and find their feet in the test arena as a batters, likes of Dan Lawrence in the first 2 games in particular showed how exciting he can be within this team. 100 from Zach Crawley, 2 young debutants coming in and performing and at the start of a very promising, exciting journeys for them. And I think we've learned a lot about trying to do things differently as well. So I think there are things that we definitely have to look at and look at not just what happened yesterday. We have to look at the whole package of this tour and what we've produced and come away as a side that has grown, albeit with a small step backwards in this game.
And a small step backwards, I think in this game, yes, in isolation, but England have lost a lot of wickets in clumps in the last 18 months. Can you pick your finger on why and how you could possibly stem that tide?
We have to keep making good decisions for longer periods of time, and I think we did that really well in the first 2 games. Yesterday there was a number of occasions where we didn't do that, and whether that's down to lack of concentration or other areas, it's something that we have to keep looking to get better at. But like you say, we've made mistakes for a period of time. We've shown that we can do it, and we've proved to ourselves that we can do it, and that when we get it right, we can drive games of cricket. And we've just got to do it more frequently. like that first innings of the first game, we find ourselves at 50 for 4, and we go and get a reasonable first innings total, stand up under pressure. That's something that we have to do more frequently, like we were yesterday. Those are the moments that we have to grab and stand up and show that we are continuing to keep getting better as a batting group.
And the tough questions and the inevitable questions that will come. England lose another test match, another series. There'll be questions on your own future as leader of a group. What would you say to that? And I know what you're going to say, so what keeps driving you back to that well to keep coming back and standing in front of us and coming up with the answers?
Because as you've seen on this tour, there's a way forward for this team. They've shown a lot of promise, they've shown a lot of good stuff, and that we are making strides forward. I'm very passionate about that and about taking it on, and that's not going to waver. I think I've made that quite clear.
And the inevitable questions about Broad and Anderson not being here. Have you learned anything about them not being here? And will we see them in the summer?
Well, I think, as mentioned, we've learned a lot about the guys that are here. And
what have you learned about the guys that are here?
Well, I think you look at the two guys that have come in, how exciting that they are as young fast bowlers, what they can offer to this team moving forward. And you could argue about what could Jimmy and Brody do in these conditions, but you could also say about the guys that have been injured that were on this trip as well. A guy like Mark Wood on this surface could have been a nightmare, similar with like Sir Ollie Robinson, and that's not taken away from the guys that have played at all. But we've learned more about that bowling group and the depth within it, and guys have had to stand up and take different roles on. And from that we've got more information and we know more about where we are as a team.
And finally, from me, there's a lot of time between now and June the 2nd. There's a lot of positions to be filled, top end of ECB and structure and everything that goes in place. What would you like to see as England captain between now and then, and what's the message for England supporters between now and then that's going to encourage them and have the benefit of positivity of England going forward?
Well, I think the one thing that's from a positive note from this trip is the attitude of the group of players that we've got here, and how determined they are to try and turn things around for this test team. It's clear for me to see, I hope it's clear for everyone at home to see as well, that we are making strides forward. In terms of everything else is completely out of my control. All I can say is we've got a very passionate group of players and coaching staff and support staff. They're desperate to see England win test matches again and in the very near future, and we'll throw everything we can, all of our energies, into making that happen sooner rather than later.
Joe, I wish you well. I do wish you all the very best at that safe trip home, and we'll look forward to seeing you this summer.
Cheers, Harmy. Thank you. You too.
Okay, well, interesting to listen to Joe. The facts are that England lost 5 series in a row. This one to West Indies, 1-0, to the Australians away, 4-0, of course. And then India at home last summer, 2-1. There's a test remaining in that's going to be played this coming summer, so that could be evened up by England. New Zealand away, 1-0, and India away, 3-1, having won that first test. Worrying collapses of batting, but I'll come to that. I just want to, I think Steve Harmison is available. Harmy?
Yeah, I'm here, Mark.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, that was a fascinating interview, thanks. How did he look and feel and sound? Did
he looked? Yeah, he looked as a man with obviously disappointment, world on his shoulders of obviously what's happened. I think we've seen yesterday with his head in his hands for that split second when Ben Foakes got run out, and I think that was the reaction that I think we've all been expecting a little bit sooner, especially the way this team's performed over the last few years, and he just spelt that out. But do you think he looked like a man who was talking rhetoric after a series because he wanted to stay in the job, or do you think he looked like a man who should stay in the job given his attitude to it? The one thing about Joe, he's a great ambassador for our game, and I think I don't think he's gone anywhere. After looking into his eyes, I think he still believes that he's the right man for the job. It's just we keep picking players who make wrong decisions and bad decisions. I didn't for 1 minute think there's a hurt man, there's a hurting man there, but I don't think there was a broken man. Okay. I really don't, and he'll come and there's no doubt he'll come back and he'll score the runs that he does. But I don't know, to answer your question, Mark, no, I don't think I've seen a broken man. I've just seen a very, very disappointed man.
Okay, Harmy, hang on there. I'm going to go to this question of the batting, because that's where I attribute more of the blame, actually. Oddly enough, you'd think that the top order was the problem, and Matt, I'd like you and Matt to talk about the top order in a second, but it's extraordinary to look at the collapses of 7 wickets in an innings, starting at the 3rd wicket to being bowled all out. It's shocking, actually, the list in 22 and 21, so the last 2 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. England have lost 7 for 32, 46, 79, 68, 64, 82, 53, 86 and 45. That's in the last 2 years. England have lost from the 3rd wicket to being bowled out. 7 for no more than 86 on any of those occasions, and the lowest of them, Australia and Hobart, was 32. So it's not just, Matt, the top order.
No, it's not just the top order, which is it runs all the way through the order. What I will say is, at the other end, we've also spoken a lot that England are 2 down for not many every single time as well. When Joe Root was batting at 4, he may as well have been batting at 3 because he was walking out after 10 minutes. So, as a whole, England's batting has not been good enough. They have not scored enough runs over a long period of time. And Marcus Trescothick said something yesterday about don't judge us, and Joe Root, it's obviously a bit of a party line because Joe Root said something similar today. You know, we did a lot of good things, and don't judge us just based on this one game and everything else. So of course this game they're 114 for 9 in the first innings, and then 120 all out in the second innings on a wicket that was getting flatter against an okay bowling attack. We've spoken a lot about just to finish that point, England, this is not a new thing. England haven't scored enough runs for a long period of time. I remember Stuart Broad being interviewed in Australia saying we can bowl wherever we want. If we keep going bowled out for 120, we aren't going to win any test matches, which is absolutely right. We've spoken about these flat, docile batting pitches that have faced these two teams in the West Indies, and I just want to look at the batting stats of this team, the top 7. Let's look at that. So Root 289 leading the way again, averaging 48. Of course, Bairstow, 226, averaging 45. Fine. The next best is averaging 32. That's Dan Lawrence. Stokes, 32. Crawley, 184 runs, including 100 in 3 games on docile pitches, 30. Lees, 21. Folkes, 19.
On flat decks. Two out of 3 flat decks. Yeah.
2 out of 3 flat decks against the team that is okay.
Harmy, we're trying to get a lot into the next 8 minutes. What's your view of the top order? Do you just keep trying people, or do you pick the 3? I mean, I think Root should stay at 4. Do you pick the 3 you think are the best and leave them in the team? What would you do?
It's such a difficult question to answer because I don't think there's the right answer. Do we go back to people that we've tried before? We keep picking players, young players, and think, right, they've got potential, but we
okay, Crawley, let's just talk Crawley and Pope. Let's just say that. I like them both. Yeah. I think they can really play.
I like them both.
Do you just leave them in the team and let them get on with it?
Yeah, but where do you that's the thing, where do you put them? Yeah, Crawley Pope,
opens
Lawrence.
And Pope bats at 5, I think.
Me and Manners spoke on our programme, the Cricket Collective, before we left here, and when they picked Ben Folkes, and I said this was the perfect chance to pick Johnny Bairstow as the keeper, batting at number 7, Stokes at 6, Pope at 5.
And that's it.
I'm not saying Ben Folkes is not a good keeper, not for 1 minute, because I think he is. Or he's not a good option. He is a good option, but if you give me Pope's batting over Folkes' keeping, when you've got Johnny that can keep and score hundreds at 7, that makes our batting unit stronger. Now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but do you keep giving them a go? But again, it comes down to, it doesn't matter how many times you go back to, or you change and you chop and whatever. It's a problem within this dressing room that we can't handle pressure. We can't handle pressure. Our techniques come under pressure when the heat of the battle's on, and we are challenged from a pressure point.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Mark, I'll just finish. In this game, we had six of the top 7 single-figure scores in the first innings, and 5 of the top 7 when all West Indies did was put the ball in a good area for a long period of time.
You're saying England are soft. It's clear. Matt?
Yeah, just picking up on the Folkes point, because I know a lot of people will be asking, and they've said for a long time, we want Ben Folkes in. He's the best wicketkeeper. Wicketkeepers make mistakes. Ben Folkes, very good keeper. He has made mistakes. He's dropped catches, he's missed stumpings. That happens. He's averaged 19. Give me the guy who will probably make the same amount of mistakes, no more, but averages 45, batting at 7. I want that guy in my test team. Absolutely, without a shadow of doubt. Going back to the Ollie Pope suggestion, I think he's a fantastic. We watched him in South Africa. He was, other than Root, he was England's best batsman, technically. He's got this off-stump theory going on. When do the coaches start going to these guys, right, this is not working, we need to make a change? The next test match is in June. That's a good chunk of time now that these young batters can go back and look at what they've done and learn from the mistakes they've made. Start working out, okay, what is the technique that I need not to score runs Sussex vs Kent at Canterbury, but what do I need to score runs at the top level in international cricket? And work with their coaches on improving some of the faults they have, because these guys, I'll say it again, these guys are talented cricketers. There's no doubt about that, but the talent has to be turned into reality and performance.
Okay, I'll come to Broad and Anderson now. Come early June, and we can bring Woakes in to this if you like. Mark Wood, we don't know about fitness. We know he's had an elbow operation today. It's not floating bone. They're pretty confident that he'll be back playing in not too long a time. But Broad and Anderson, is there a place in the England side still for them both, for one at any one time, or for neither? Jared, do you want to start off on that?
I think Anderson's the one that you have to build your attack around if you're going to keep one. I think he's been one of the best bowlers in the world over the last 5 years, and I think Broad's been fantastic, but I don't think you can build it around both of them. I do think it's worth mentioning that their top 5 bowlers were not available for this test, the last 2 tests, because of Mark Wood's injury. Now, obviously, a lot of that was their own decision. But that should be factored into it. But
are you including Archer in that?
Yeah.
So we've got to write him off out of conversation. I mean,
at the moment, yeah.
Well, we have, yeah. He's been out of the game for a year. So you're saying Broad, Anderson, Robinson and Wood.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of good bowlers not to have around. I don't think that takes them off the hook for losing this series at all, but it is worth mentioning. But I think if it was me, I'd be saying, how long can I keep peak Anderson being peak Anderson, and then I would build an attack around that. And I think there's enough. The talent of English bowlers, I don't think is the major problem here. How they translate to overseas might be.
My guess is that any of the Broad, Anderson, Robinson, Wood thing, if 3 of those had been out there with Jack Leach in Barbados, I think we probably would have won that test. But anyway, we're just going to keep going as fast as we can. Steve, do you have a thought on the Broad Anderson thing?
No, I agree that I think if they had been out here, I think we would have, and Wood would have been he's a huge miss, because obviously the pace that he possesses and the accuracy of the other 3 of Anderson, Broad and Robinson. I'm watching Robinson out here and in disbelief and shake my head sometimes and think, well, is the penny dropping from a fitness point of view? It's 4 or 5 games he's been in and out of or pulled out of. That would worry me as a 77, 78 mile an hour bowler. The Stuart Broad one, well, I disagree a little bit that you can't build but if we're worrying about building our attack around a 40-year-old bloke, then I'm sorry, we need to be scratching our heads. I personally would play Broad and Anderson in England and play them for as long as I possibly can, and then the way they perform will deter whether their careers are ending or England are starting to build something from a winning background, because I think the one thing we've missed out here on the very, very first ball of a game or the very, very first ball of a session is control, and the one thing Broad and Anderson will always give you is control, and from that, as a captain, you can build.
Okay, on to coaching. You've got strong views, Matt.
I do. There's this trend at the moment that coaching is now player-led, and you've got to let the player decide what they believe is best for them and what they want to do, etc., and then you help guide them through that and find their best way. But it's all player-led coaching, which I think can work when the player knows what they need. When the player has... So if you go up to an experienced cricketer, you go up to Joe Root. Joe Root knows what he needs in his game and for his game. Ollie Pope, I will argue, doesn't yet. He's still got a lot of way to go. Ollie Pope's had a club with Alex Stewart, for instance. I wonder if, and I don't know, probably they have, but at what point do you watch Ollie Pope or Zach Crawley or any of them and you go, actually guys, no, I'm going to have to, Marcus Trescott, when does he go to them and say, I have to step in here and help guide you through this because it's not working? If it's working, fine, no argument. But there are certain basic technical flaws that are being repeated time and time and time again, not being fixed, and the results are showing. The other thing with the coaching, and the start that we're talking, that's the end where we talk about England cricketers. But this starts, let's not forget, we've mentioned county cricket again, but even before that, coaching young cricketers, the basics, development cricket, coaches. I'm listening to kids being told you have to have a sweep and a reverse sweep and it's all about hand speed. They can't play a front foot defence. How many kids could just step forward and play a good old-fashioned forward defence? I know it's not popular. I know everyone wants to play in the 100 and play in IPL and everything else. But if we're not getting the basics in at the very beginning, it's very hard to get them in at the end. So, look, it's a big shift, but it's one that's needed.
I just want to go back to the two best batting teams in world cricket over the last 5 years, New Zealand and India. Look at their techniques. England's going to be playing New Zealand again. Have a look at the techniques, and then go and have a look at the techniques of English players. They've both grown up on green pitches. It's very similar situations, right? You know, every second bowler in New Zealand bowls 75 miles an hour and wobbles it around the corner, and yet their batters have exceptional techniques over and over again, and they're producing so much more batting talent than they ever should. For me, it does feel like it's a ground-up problem. It's not just at the test level or the professional level.
Absolutely. Start with the pathway. Develop young players, coach them when they're 13 and 14, 15, not when they're 25. Our statistician just sent me another list. Oh my gosh. England collapses from the start of the innings. 4 for 47, 4 for 29, 4 for 28, 4 for 80, 4 for 50, 4 for 39, 4 for 71. And that's also over the last 2 years. So yes, batting is definitely the problem. And I'm with you. I think technique is essential, and I just don't think you can survive at this level against quality bowlers, even on decent pitches, actually, if you don't have a good technique to fall back on, or at least something in your game to fall back on, and I think that Josh De Silva has just proven that for West Indies. We've covered most of the subjects there about England. I'm going to turn to West Indies briefly in a moment. Anything you'd like to add? Neil, you haven't been in for a while. Anybody want to add anything about England's cricket right now? No, Matt. Yes.
No. I think we've covered it all. The only thing I'd add, probably just to finish on the England bit, is we just don't, it's not time for these false positives. It's a time for real, honest, hard reflection of where we're at.
Okay, Harmy over there. Have you got anything to add?
Sorry, I missed that. I missed that bit.
Just wondered if you'd like a final word. You know, I mean, our producer's wondering if you'd like to bowl at this this England lineup, but I don't think that's a fair question to you. If we're trying to throw this forward for English cricket, and particularly for the England cricket team, anything you'd like to add to this conversation you think is important going forward?
I think get a stable base very, very quickly, early, and I'm talking about from the top of the ECB. Get the structure in place early, suck it up. Unfortunately, we're going to have times like this and put tin hats on when we don't do well, but if we start doing the basics right, like Matty and Jared said, from the bottom up, we've got a chance.
You mean a new structure, Harvey, do you? A new structure of first-class cricket? Is that what you're saying? And how will you convince the counties?
The only way that anybody can be convinced, and that's from financial. How do the counties convince by the 100? Because they're going to get more money.
The counties are now more worried about relevance than money right now. They're terrified of being squashed.
But money talks, Mark. Money talks. State of first class cricket in our country. Mark's just alluded to it. The amount of overseas players that we all grew up with, through your time, through my time, through Matt's time, and all the way through, was ridiculous. The overseas players, they're now playing hundreds, they're now playing IPLs, they're not playing first class cricket, and that's hampering our game. So we've got to find a way somehow of building it back up from the bottom up over, because if not, we're going to be having the same conversation next year and the year after that, And unfortunately, for the next 4 or 5 years, and the next captain will have to face the same questions.
Harmy, very good. Everybody, very good. Let's turn to West Indies. Neil, start with you. This is a most encouraging sign, as much by their team's attitude. West Indies have looked intense, involved and engaged by the 5-day game.
They have, and they've got a lot of players who can still come back. Jared and I were talking just before we started about the number of really talented West Indian cricketers who have been accused of having no interest in in playing the red ball game, in playing Test match cricket and representing the Caribbean. And actually, I don't think it's true in some cases. Shimron Hetmeyer has been ruled out. He's not fit, and he appears to have focused his attention on the T20 game. But there are a number of really talented West Indian players who could make this team stronger. I mean, they're not at their strongest. There's nothing wrong with their passion and their commitment, is there? And we saw that. And I, you know, not just I'm not talking about runs and wickets. I'm talking about the number of balls. Craig Brathwaite in himself is. It sounds slightly counterintuitive, but he is an absolute inspiration, and hopefully for young test wannabes around the world, not just in the Caribbean. But you know, if they can get a little bit more flair into the team, and there are some really good old-fashioned fast bowlers who we didn't see in this series, and some young batsmen like Nicholas Pooran. So he's been pigeonholed as a white ball specialist, and I believe that's not he desperately wants to play cricket. So this is a West Indian team that really could and should and could get a lot better.
I think the best story is probably Kyle Mayers. He has been sitting on the bench, not even getting a go in first-class cricket. He hasn't been developed the way that he should have. He's gone off and worked out how to play cricket on his own, made a double century in his first game. Even here, we thought he was playing as a change bowler. There's a lot of talent out there that isn't being developed in West Indies cricket. And I can tell you, Jaden Seals is incredible. I don't know how much you've seen Chima Holder bowl. He's an incredible bowler as well. They are still bringing in very high-level talent coming through. It's really now about them building that team. And I think that Brathwaite is the perfect captain because Brathwaite doesn't have one eye on the IPL. He's not going to get an IPL job. He is trying to make this team as good as it could be. And in Nkrumah Bonner and Joshua De Silva, he's got a spine coming through. Jaden Seals said recently that, you know, he wants to put Test cricket before white ball cricket as well. These guys are actually trying to build something together. And I've worked with these players. The guys like Chandrapal Hemraj and, Romario Shepherd, they are so talented. And a lot of them are being lost to professional cricket. You have a good team. I don't think that's as much of a problem. I think a lot of them will come through, but they have to continue to develop their talent over there.
A word on West Indies, Matt?
Yeah, I just think the way they played was not traditional West Indies. It was that attritional fight. You think of West Indies, you think of flair, 4s and 6s, cuts and pulls, fast bowlers running in and bowling bouncers, and this wasn't it. They were very, very honest in how they played. They were honest with where their games were at, but they weren't going to be budged off that mark. They knew Joshua De Silva. He knew his game, and he was going to stick to it. No matter what Johnny Bairstow said to him, he was going to play his game his way, and they did it brilliantly, and they've won a Test series.
Oh, very good. That's a great summary. You're right. Almost like discipline was their byword, wasn't it? It was terrific. Great stuff, guys. Thank you very much for a very interesting podcast. I'm sure that our friends out there will enjoy your views. Thanks for the Test match. The news from St George's in Grenada today is that England were well beaten, I'm afraid to say, hammered actually by 10 wickets. A convincing West Indies side did a real job on them. Craig Brathwaite was chosen as man of the series for his resilient batting and calm leadership. Joshua De Silva was chosen as man of the match for his excellent 100, and that my abiding memory of the series will be the young talent of Jaden Seals and of Joshua De Silva's 100, and indeed of his resistance in Barbados. This has been a tremendous moment for West Indies cricket. We hope it's a platform for them going forward. The other really big story is that Joe Root is going nowhere, at least not as far as he's concerned. Joe Root is committed to the England job. From all of us here on talkSPORT 2, it's bye-bye. Wokes now running in. And a single for Brathwaite. That brings the scores level. Do they run back for two? They do. Brathwaite lifts his right arm to the sky and waves his bat at his dressing room and at the home supporters. To Silva there, punches the air on that balcony. Hips move in this direction and that in the crowd as the steel pan pounds it out. So too the master of the disco. The flags are waved now because West Indies have recorded a fine victory here in Grenada. They've beaten England by 10 wickets and they've taken the series by 1-0. The West Indies captain and probably the man of the series, Craig Brathwaite, is the man who hit the winning runs, and now he shakes the hand of all the England players who are of course disconsolate. On the faces of 11 men in white is despair. On the faces of everybody else from the Caribbean is joy.
Women's Football Weekly on talkSPORT 2 with Now. Join talkSPORT 2 tomorrow evening for top analysis, debate and guests, reviewing all the latest women's football action from across the weekend. World-beating, big match conversation on the station that's raising the game for women's football. Women's Football Weekly, tomorrow evening on talkSPORT 2 with a Now Sports membership. Stream the biggest moments from the Women's Super League live without a contract from $11.99. Search Now Sports, 18 plus, stream via internet, terms apply.
Say thank you this Mother's Day with a special gift from Pandora. When you spend £99 or more, we'll treat you to a free bracelet from a selection. But hurry, this offer won't be around for long. Ends Sunday the 27th of March while stocks last. Available in participating stores and online at pandora.net. Terms and exclusions apply.
Mike recently opened a Crown Decorating Centre's trade account and got even better prices, which put a huge smile on his face. A smile that got noticed by a passing model scout who made Mike the face of a global toothpaste brand called Brilliant White. Coincidence? We don't think so. You see, everything's better when you open a Crown Decorating Centre's trade account. Sign up in store or online today for preferential pricing and more. Crown Decorating Centres. It's not just paint, it's personal.
My prostate cancer was thankfully caught in the nick of time, but it shouldn't be down to luck.
Men at higher risk are
aged over 50,
those with a family history of the disease, or black men over 45.
Check your risk of prostate cancer now. Search Risk Checker or visit prostatecanceruk.org. Men, we are with you.
Here in the UK, we sell amazing products and services the whole world wants.
At the Black Farmer in Devon, our produce is enjoyed on both sides of the Atlantic.
We're McKinnon and Saunders from Manchester, and our puppets are watched on 6 continents.
Whilst at Acceleron in Birmingham, our sustainable, recyclable batteries are helping power 9 countries.
So whatever your business, big or small, start-up or established, if you make it in the UK, why not sell it to the world? To get free help from the UK government, search Let's Get Exporting.
Hold on to your mugs. EE's Full Fiber is here. New broadband that can handle anything. And whatever you think that means, times it by a zillion and dip it in chocolate. Because this broadband connects 100 devices in your home. Search EE Full Fiber.
18.3% UK availability. Check coverage at ee.co.uk.
Hi, I'm Alan Brazil. And I'm Ray Parlour. We're taking our new live stage show on the road in April and in May. Sponsored by Arnold Clark. Join us for an evening of fun and laughter with tales from the studio, from the dressing rooms, and of course, Cheltenham. We'll be rolling into Stoke-on-Trent, London, Birmingham, Southend, and Peterborough.
And now with new dates added, you can catch talkSPORT's Alan Brazil and Ray Parlour in Newcastle and Nottingham. Get your tickets now from talksport.com/events.
On DAB+, online, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. PGA Golf live on talkSPORT 2.
listening to PGA Tour Live with me, Russell Hargreaves, right here on talkSPORT 2. It's semi-final and finals time at the WGC Dell World Match Play at the Austin Country Club in Texas. The semi-finals are as follows. Two-time major winner Dustin Johnson up against the hottest, most informed player on the planet, fellow American Scotty Scheffler. And it's Scheffler who's blown their semi wide open. He is 5 up through 11 after winning the first, the third, the fourth and the 8th. DJ took the 9th, but further blue numbers for Scheffler on the 10th and the 11th mean he's got a hefty lead. 5 up with just 7 holes to go. They're currently playing the 12th. Key thing for Scheffler this week, if he wins come tonight, when of course we get through to the final, Scheffler will be the new world number 1. World rank 5 heading in, the 25-year-old from Texas, a 2-time winner on tour in the past month at the Phoenix Open live on talkSPORT 2, when he finally won on tour for the first time. He backed that up 3 weeks later at the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill, tied 7th at the Genesis in between as well. Consecutive back-to-back-to-back top 10s, 2 wins, and now just on the cusp of a final berth in the WGC match play. So Scheffler, unquestionably the form horse and the red-hot favourite to follow Billy Horschel to be the World Match Play champion come the end of the night in the Lone Star State. But who, in all likelihood, will he play in the final? That's a far tighter question and a much more enticing affair between Kevin Kisner, the veteran in South Carolina, and the only non-American who's made it through to the last 4. That's Canada's Corey Connors. They're currently all square through 11. Kisner who took the 2nd, Connors won the 3rd, Kisner taking the 7th, and a few minutes ago Connors winning the 11th. They're currently playing the short par-4 12th. Whoever comes out on top in this massive tussle, in all likelihood, will play Scheffler in the final tonight, right here on your home of the PGA Tour, talkSPORT 2. Mark Carnival, Earl Forsey, Bill Rudzinski anchoring our coverage from the Austin Country Club. And it's Fred Olbers, Doug Bell and Tom Wormy who call the exciting action from inside the ropes. So our thanks to our brilliant cricket team who've brought us every twist and turn of the West Indies' eventual Test Series win against England by a match to 0. That's done a little early, so it means bonus golf for you and quality golf, WGC level golf, and the only match play tournament of the season when it comes to individual honours. Who's going to win? By the end of the night, we take you on talkSPORT 2 to PGA Tour Radio.
Just off to the right of the green, and we'll see if that winds up. I suspect once they clear everybody out, it'll be a decent lie for Connors, and he's just off the putting surface, maybe about 15 yards here at the par 5 12.
Yeah, it'll be challenging, a little up and down, but again, yeah, I mean, he had to stay away from the water.
Well, 13, 279 front hole, 275 to clear the water, but it's iron for Dustin Johnson, Fred.
And being 4 down in the match still takes the conservative play. Heads that out to the right-hand side. That's absolutely fine. Mark, I like the way Billy Horschel told me he approaches match play. He just looks on every hole, what are his best odds to play in order to make the best score possible. If that means trying to drive this green, that's what he does. Does not pay all that much attention, at least until the last few holes, of what his opponent is doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, but it also depends on what's going on with your match. You know, and if you're well up in the match, absolutely. If you're down, then I think again you got to change a little bit of that. But I think it's a good way to look at it.
Scotty Scheffler now on the tee, and he's going to try to take this onto the green. Ball high in the air, needs to carry that water coming down. Oh, he splashed. He splashed. My goodness, Mark, that was a dangerous play, and it did not pay off. The entire match can swing on a shot like that.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that he did not clear the penalty area, I mean, he's going to have to drop well up and well back. Again, I don't dislike the play, but, I mean, you got to still play that out to the right-hand side. There is some protection long there, but after watching DJ lay up, Earl, there's no, sense to go for it. I get the desire, but that was, at least in my mind, kind of a silly mistake there.
Yeah, it's an interesting shot. It's certainly doable for a lot of these players, Carney, with that front hole location. Like I said, 275 to the bulkhead and just 4 paces on for the hole. Even if you clear the green, I know it's a chip up and down probably for birdie, but taking on that risk when you've got the big lead against DJ. We'll see how that plays, at the end of the semifinal. But that's certainly an open door for Dustin Johnson now, even more so here at 13.
And the way he's walking, it looked like it may have been a big hook. Fred might be able to comment about that because he's walking well up here, and I don't see how he's going to be able to. Well, no, there's another little walkway that cuts from the fairway, and it's split by water as well. So he's going up and keeping that in line. But it looked like at one point he was going to walk all the way up the right side of the fairway, but now it's going to be about some halfway to the hole probably. But it's still going to be a challenging shot. But yeah, that was a very strange play.
4-up lead for Scotty Scheffler could be down to 3 up over DJ in 60 seconds.
I need 4 more of their biscuit carnitas, 2 burnt end platters, 3...
The kitchen at Kai's Barbecue is firing on all cylinders.
Greg, help me bring this to the pickup.